Look, guys, I truly believe that Mountain Tough is the most valuable resource for people who know they need to get their butts in shape, or for athletes who are ready to take their fitness to the next level. We waste a lot of time working out, not doing the right things, and this Mountain Tough app is going to help clear all of that up for you guys. Make sure that you are following a program that's tailored to you and your goals. It's going to just give you everything that you need on a daily basis in order to dial your fitness in. This Mountain Tough app has different programming for all different levels of fitness, whether you're a beginner, whether you're intermediate and you're just looking to go to the next level, and even for elite level athletes, there's going to be programming in here specifically for them that's going to push them really, really hard. So there's tons of stuff in here. Everything from at-home and gym programs. There's programs that you can follow in the Mountain Tough app that don't require a ton of equipment, some that are heavy on equipment if you're going to work out in the gym. It has a component in the app that is groundbreaking mental toughness training, because mindset is a huge part of being able to push and get the most out of your time when you're working out. This Mountain Tough is actually a Christian-rooted company, all right? I know the founder of this company, Dustin, and he is very passionate about his faith in Christ. That means a lot to me. So part of this app, there is a daily guided prayer for you guys, biometrical form coaching, stretching, mobility, nutrition guidance on the app, challenge workouts, and you also have access to a global Mountain Tough community through membership on the app here. So it's an unbelievable resource, and I'm so thankful that Mountain Tough has created this, because I truly believe in the impact that is being made and can be made through this type of work and this type of resource on the Mountain Tough app. Mountain Tough is offering listeners of the 3 of 7 podcast a pretty dang good offer. If you'll enter code 3 of 7 on the monthly plan, you will receive your first month free after your 14-day trial. So that's 6 weeks free to figure out how to use this app, to make sure that it's for you. And I'm telling you, you're going to find something in here that's going to be very beneficial, probably more than just one thing. So that's 6 weeks free on the best-in-class physical, fitness, and mental training app that is on the market today. And again, it's really, really important to me that this is a company who has Christian roots, and the fact that they add this prayer in here and the mental toughness aspect and all the different components that you guys need to be engaging in to stay healthy, to grow, and to get after it, whatever your next challenge is, whether it's a hunt or an ultra marathon, or if you just want to be fit and healthy so that you can, give the most that you can possibly give to the people around you who matter, like your family and your kids and your teams at work. This is going to be a great place to go to help guide you through that journey, man. Check them out. The website is mountaintough.com, and all of the information for this, including a promo link, a clickable link, will be in the description of this episode. So thank you, Mountain Tough, for everything that you're doing for the community that you've built, and hopefully you guys go and check it out. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Hey, I want to tell you guys about Salty Britches. I've been using this product for years, and it is an anti-chafing cream. It provides a long-lasting skin barrier that's going to keep you comfortable no matter what your activity is. Chafing really sucks. It can make your experience, whether it's ultra running, surfing, walking, hiking, you name it, chafing can make your experience miserable. Salty Britches is the best anti-chafing ointment on the market in my personal experience. You put it on one time, it lasts for a long time. You don't have to continuously reapply it. you're not going to be disappointed in this stuff if you get out there and get after it. It's been used by top performing athletes. It's been used by amputees, by surfers. It's been used by the military. This stuff has been put through the ringer. Check them out at saltybritches.com. It's an amazing product, best out there in my opinion. And it's an amazing company. The people behind the brand are good friends of mine. And I think that it's important that we support companies that share the same values as us. Salty Britches is one of those. So again, saltybritches.com. Thank you, Salty Britches, for sponsoring this episode of the 3 to 7 podcast. Enough said. I actually begged my leadership to send me to Ranger School, and they wouldn't do it for some reason. Maybe they thought I wouldn't pass. I don't know.
Can I move this? Is that okay?
Yeah. You can do whatever you need to do, brother.
Is it okay to place it here? Oh, man. Stretch it out real quick. That was okay. How's that for audio?
Courtney will correct us if we get out of whack or too far from our mics, but awesome. Yeah, I begged them to send me to Ranger School because they would send SEALs to Ranger School as a punishment. Okay, well, I had done something really bad, and I was begging for Ranger School as a punishment, but I never got to go. It seems like an amazing training pipeline. It's really leadership based, right?
Yes, sir. It is. I mean, that's for sure. You will be challenged leading people. I mean, it's kind of like any pipeline or any course that requires grit. You know, like lack of sleep, lack of food, not knowing the people really that you're working with and getting them to accomplish a mission, you know, under those conditions. And it just gets worse as the course goes on because you're more tired, you're hungrier, you know, all these things. So, but it's amazing what the human body's capable of, because when you're put into those leadership positions and it's graded and it's a go or no go, the body responds to that adrenaline just spikes up. Yeah. So it's interesting from a physiological standpoint too, of kind of what your body becomes accustomed to, or what it's introduced to as well. Because a lot of these guys are young soldiers or young officers who've never experienced that. And I was special forces qualified already. And so I'd gone through those conditions for probably about 2 years, going through the Green Beret course, the Q course. And so, but to see people just kind of I mean, the body peaks and then it crashes and then it peaks, you know, it's not healthy. You know, there's a lot of studies out there that just showcase what that does to a person in those environments, you know. So, but those are the things that people are experiencing in combat, you know. So, I mean, it's a great way to introduce soldiers to what they're going to expect in combat and what they'll face, you know, not only tactically, but from a physiological response too. So
yeah, so you're not experiencing that the first time when it actually matters. Yep. What was the most difficult part of Ranger School for you? Was it the lack of food? Was it the weather? Was it the stress of leadership role? I mean, what challenged you the most?
Probably sleep. Lack of sleep.
Okay.
It really hit me in Florida. Probably day 45, something like that. Out of, I think, Ranger School, 62 days or 61 days. But it just got to a point my body you see it's very common. Guys will walk and all of a sudden their head just goes down and they go to sleep. And you're just like, come on, man, keep moving. Or you take a knee, or you get in a patrol base and you lay down. Naturally, the body's like sleep. And you're like on a 240 machine gun, or you're there, in a prone position on a rifle, your body just naturally goes to sleep. But it took a toll on me. Food wasn't a problem. I went in the wintertime, so I was a winter ranger guy. So the elements, they were just brutal, especially in mountains in Dahlonega. I was like, man, this is, and it was so cold that when we'd do a patrol, and we'd go to do patrol base activities, they say, guys, we can't stop, because if you guys lay down, someone will get hypothermia. Like, it will not be good. And so we would just walk So it was like kind of the introduction to the ROP for me. It's like you would just walk through the mountains of Dahlonega, and then you just switch over leadership, and you just keep patrolling. So it was good. It was always a goal of mine to go to Ranger School, and I'm glad I did it. So, but it just covers a lot of the basic tactics. But leadership, you see people shine, And there was times where I didn't do the best. There were times I did pretty good. But that's just, I think, developing as a leader and as a person is just seeking continuous improvement, learning from what you did bad, learning what you did good, and really crediting the team. That's always like the forefront of NSW or any organization, whether it's a business or the military. Crediting the team and recognizing what the team has done to set people up for success is so important. So,
yeah, the sleep thing is weird too, man. The first time you experience the sleep deprivation, it's shocking to me how many people have never experienced that, like what that actually does to your body. Because I experienced that at a young age, as you did. I remember the first time sleep deprivation really had significant effects on me. I would have been in my early 20s, maybe 20 years old. It was during Hell Week. And I remember being in the leaning rest, which is the push-up position for everyone who didn't serve in the military. And I was waiting to go into the chow hall to eat. And I was in the leaning rest, and I looked back up under my arm up at the sky, because I kind of arched my back, to give me a quick break. And it looked like the sky was falling on me. Like the sky was coming down on top of me, and it freaked me out. And I went to the medic there, and I said, "Hey, man, something weird's going on. I just looked at the sky, and it was falling on me." And he looked me back dead in the eye, and he said, "Do you want to quit?" I said, "No." He said, "All right, go get back in the leaning rest." Like, no explanation, no medical, like, "Hey, man, this is normal. This is part of sleep deprivation. You're hallucinating right now." Just like, "Do you want to quit?" "No." "Okay, go get back in the leaning rest." It freaks people out, man. It really does. Sleep deprivation is a hard thing to overcome. And I don't know about you, but sleep deprivation, it doesn't affect me the same every time, like in every instance. Sometimes it'll crush me, dude, and I'll start to hallucinate and get super dizzy and just out of it. But sometimes I manage it better. It's like every time I go into that, whether it's in ultra running or during my military career, every time it would affect me differently. Sometimes I would deal with it better than others. So it's not the same effect for me personally every time I experience it. I got a lightning round. We're starting with a lightning round.
Okay.
We got to get your juices flowing here.
Okay, sure.
By the way, guys, this is Daniel Carlton. And I asked Daniel to come on the podcast because he was a student at our rite of passage mission a few months ago. And watching Daniel not only complete that mission, but thrive throughout that course, pour into other people, pour into me as his instructor. It was the most inspiring thing that I have ever seen since I've been doing this job at 307 Project. And I don't know Daniel's whole story. If maybe you can't see it on camera, but Daniel is missing his leg below, or just above the knee. And which is part of what made it so inspiring, because that mission is hard, dude. The ROP course is hard. And we've both done hard things, right? It's not the hardest thing we've ever done. Nonetheless, it's hard every time I do it. And the way you did it and some of the conversations that we had while we were out there, I was like, I got to learn more about who Daniel is. And I also have to share who you are with the audience that the Lord has blessed us with, man. So that's why Daniel's here. Lightning round.
All right, let's go.
Let's get your juices flowing. All right, for your primary weapon, M4 rifle or AK-47?
M4.
M4?
Yep.
Caliber 5.56 or 308?
Well, if I'm sticking the primary, then 5.56.
All right. For your secondary, Beretta or Glock?
Glock.
All right, for vehicle-mounted weapon, Mark 19, which is the 40 Mike grenade launcher, or dual M240s, or the Mod Deuce. You got three to pick from.
I spent a lot of time on a Mark 19. Man, there's nothing like an M2, like a 50 cal. I mean, just the sight of that, you see it, like it makes a statement just visually. I'll take it.
Mod Deuce?
Yes, sir.
All right, roger that. All right, camo pattern, uniforms, multicam or the old M81 Woodland camo?
Woodland.
Oh, man, I'm so glad you said that. You don't, I guess they don't even use it anymore.
It's obsolete.
That's what I grew up wearing, was the Woodland. That's what we went all through buds with. That was our dress uniform. That was our working uniform.
It's a good one. I don't know why they got rid of it, especially when the ACU was introduced, at least in the Army. Horrible decision to get rid of the Woodland camo pattern for the digital, the gray, and I don't even know what that thing was, but
I agree. All right, for we'll say a rocket launcher, Law Rocket or Carl Gustav recoilless rifle.
If I'm rolling by myself, something I can do by myself, it's a Law. Carl G, you need some help doing that one.
Did you ever get to where you could hit anything with a Law?
Maybe.
I could never hit anything with a Law Rocket, man. I don't know why, but I could nail some stuff with a Carl G. Once you figured out how that sight worked and how to dial it in, it was deadly accurate.
It's a great platform.
Oh, it is. And the different rounds that you can load into that thing just for different purposes, it was always my favorite. I just never could hit anything with a Law. All right. I don't know if you went to free fall or not. Next question, static line or free fall?
Free fall. All day.
Why?
It's cooler.
And easier on the knees? It
is. And the application too of it, static line, you're limited. I mean, it's just different purpose, but the ability to free fall in somewhere gives a commander options on how to infiltrate, so, and it's, like I said, it's cooler. It's funner. So
I'll agree with you on that. All right. Explosives. If you had to pick one to have in your pack, and of course, both of these would come with all the necessary components, deck cord, blasting cap, no nail, all that stuff. What would you choose? A single M112 block of C4 or a Claymore mine?
Probably Claymore. Because you have the ability to open that thing up and take out, the demo from inside if you need, and kind of reshape it, and it's cool too. You see that thing sitting out.
Mm-hmm.
These business time. So
I don't even remember how much C4 is in a Claymore. It's a good bit.
It's a good one. Yeah, I don't know.
It's a good bit. It's enough to like you said, take it out, mold it, and use it in different ways if you needed to. All right, training environment. Cold or hot?
Cold.
Really?
Indeed.
Not me, brother.
I went to SF selection, Special Forces selection in January. I went to Ranger School in January. Like, there's something about it. I was like, look, I'd rather just get it done, and plus too, I think when you do those things, I mean, all these hard things or any kind of training environment plays a huge, it's a huge factor in it. So I think doing hard things, especially when it's cold, for me is another level of mental toughness, especially when you're limited, you're restrained, like you can't wear snivel gear, so it's just like, man, so to overcome that and successfully meet the criteria, wearing next to nothing is just, another level of toughness or stupidity.
No, it is. And I think training in a cold environment also builds a whole nother level of proficiency, because the cold complicates everything.
It does.
In every mission set, doesn't matter what it is, the cold complicates everything, because the cold will kill you. And it requires more gear if you're going to be out there for a significant amount of time. So, yeah,
think
man.
About things like batteries. What cold does to batteries? It drains those. So it's like, how do you care for those sensitive items? Do do you need more of those things in case that cold takes a toll on those and depletes the energy? So it makes you think, and it makes you appreciate things a lot more.
Yeah. You have to tighten up. You have to know your gear in the cold because it does weird stuff. Even your boots. I mean, I'm sure you've woken up before and your boots have been frozen. What do? Like, you can't get them on your feet. Like, and you learn, oh, okay, I need to put these boots in my shelter with me at night under my pillow, or use them as a pillow so my boots aren't frozen in the morning. Like, all those little things that people don't think about. Man, the cold, tent poles in the cold, especially if it's wet, they're not coming apart. Like,
it's a great educator.
It is.
That's for sure.
It is. Last one, running or rucking?
Rucking. Even when I was an able-bodied person back in the old days, like I didn't like to run, but I was good at it. Just didn't like it. But yeah, even today, I'll put a ruck on and just go.
Well, rucking was, I mean, when I think about SF, when I think about Green Berets, I just think like rucking is their bread and butter. I mean, they're the best at it. When, at least from my perspective. I mean, SEALs, dude, we don't want to carry weight on us. Like, we want to be as streamlined as possible. I mean, very rarely would you ever see a team guy carrying a rucksack around. It was always as minimal as we could possibly go. We wanted to be light and fast. Rucks would crush us. Actually, one of my most difficult land evolutions in SEAL training was during SQT, land warfare phase, and it was an 18-mile ruck with a 45-pound ruck. It collapsed the arches in my feet. I mean, I couldn't walk around right for like 2 weeks after that. And I had to start, go right into nighttime IADS that night. But it wrecked me, dude.
Yeah, it'll do it. But it's one of the fundamental movements of humankind. You go kill an animal, put it on a backpack of some sort, and you carry it back to your village. And you think about the evolution of humankind. I mean, it's a core fundamental of being a person. It's just throwing weight on your back and navigating the terrain, for survival, exploration. Even to this day, like, it's so critical, I think, for people to continue to go out and be mobile and move and carry weight. So
there is something primal about it, for sure.
Absolutely.
I would agree with you. Even like when we do the basic course and you go out, it's a 3-day mission and you have everything that you need on your back. There's something primal about that. There's something freeing about it too, really. It's like, I got everything I need on my back. Yeah, it's heavy, but really this is all I need to survive for a long time. As long as I can continue to find food and water and replenish that source, I'm good to go. All right, I gotta give a brief bio on you, Daniel, because I want the listeners to know who they're hearing from today. And so there's a lot here. I've cut this down as much as I possibly can, but this is a little bit about who Daniel is. In November of 2014, Daniel was honorably retired from the U.S. Army after 15 years of service to our country. He is married, and how many children do you guys have now?
8.
8. Okay, that's what I thought, because this bio, this is an old source. It was 5. So you've increased that number. His military career spanned over 15 years with assignments that brought him across the globe. His service began in August of 1999 when he enlisted as a motor transport operator in the U.S. Army. While serving in Europe, he was deployed to Kosovo. While serving with 1st COSCOM, he deployed to Kuwait and then to Iraq to support Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2003 as the operations sergeant for the 126th Transportation Company. I guess shortly after that deployment to Iraq in 2004, you attended the Army Special Forces Assessment and Selection Course, and you were awarded the MOS of 18 Charlie, Special Forces Engineer Sergeant, and assigned to the 7th Special Forces Group Airborne as a Green Beret. While serving with the 7th Special Forces, Daniel deployed numerous times to various Central and South American countries, as well as multiple combat tours in Afghanistan. He was selected to attend the Special Forces Warrant Officers course in 2010 and received his appointment as a Special Forces Warrant Officer. During his time as a warrant officer, he served as an Assistant Special Forces Operational Detachment Alpha ODA Detachment Commander, as well as an ODA Commander in Afghanistan. Daniel was wounded twice in Afghanistan, and his most recent injury occurred on November 29, 2012, which resulted in the amputation of his left leg above the knee. Daniel has been awarded the Legion of Merit, 2 Purple Hearts, 3 Bronze Stars, Special Forces Tab, and Ranger Tab. And I don't know if this is also out of date, but you have earned your bachelor's degree in Strategic Studies and Defense Analysis in September of 2015. And that was post-service.
Yes.
Correct? And that's a little synopsis. That's a lot. You've lived quite a life, Daniel. You have lived quite a life, man. What a career, dude.
I had a good time. Well, thank you, first of all, but I had I don't know. It's like we were kind of chatting about earlier. You know, I guess my bosses thought I was having a successful career in whatever successes I had in the Army, especially in Special Forces. All credit to the team, especially as the leadership positions increased. Because without the guys really putting things together, you know, especially as a commander or assistant detachment commander, you give the guys task and purpose, and you let them do their thing, and you pull it together. And really, I owe it to my teammates, you know, because they're hardworking guys, very smart guys, very capable people. And so when you get those type of people in a room together to go figure out some pretty complex things, that's when the magic happens, you know. And yeah, so I say it now, and I'll always say it. You know, my successes always were attributed to great teammates. So I was just dumb enough and stubborn enough to never quit through any of the training pipelines, and you know, smart enough to realize I could never do it alone. You know, and being able to ask for help and lean onto the experience and expertise of my buddies. So,
are you a Christian, Daniel?
Yes, sir.
When were you saved, or when did that faith begin for you?
So I grew up not in a church of any sort. We'd go kind of like to Christmas and Easter service. It was like twice a year Christians, you know, and mostly my Aunt Ruthie would take us. And so in our house, we believed in Jesus, and we knew who Jesus was, and believed in God. And that was really it, even leading up into the Army. And I wasn't like a maniac, you know, I mean, I believed in the word, you know, but I wasn't reckless with my life. But man, we'll get into it. I mean, because this is,
okay, if
you're ready for it. Yeah, well, let me back up a little bit. So when I first met my wife, we were dating, you know, of course, every Sunday. She's like, we're going to church. And I'm like, okay. Didn't want to be there, but we'd go. And of course, we'd get married, you know, and every opportunity I could to take, you know, especially when we had kids, I'll take the kid outside when the baby was crying. So I just kind of like walk around and hang outside. But it wasn't until I lost my leg. Well, I'll back up. It wasn't until we got orders to go to Afghanistan in 2012. We had a pretty straightforward mission at the time. And then right before we left, a warning order came down. They're saying, hey, half of the team is going to stay in this location doing village stability operations, interacting with the local government, that kind of thing. The other half, and this is in Kandahar, the other half of the team, you're going down south, and you're going to set up village stability platform, but it ain't going to be easy. And so where we were was just east of Helmand, and right between Helmand and Panjwai, like probably the two worst places on the planet. And so this was my third trip to Afghanistan. I knew this area. It's like, man, it's going to be the Wild West. And so, and I was in charge of half of our A team. And when we got there, I mean, I just had a bad feeling, Chad. I was like, man, this is going to be a rough trip. And I'd been through some rough trips before, but I was like, this is going to be a tough one. And before our partner force, our Afghan Special Forces guys showed up, it was just our team guys just doing stuff. And I remember asking God, I was like, God, if you need to take someone, let it be me. I was like, keep these men safe. But if you must, I was like, let it be me. Because I loved those guys so much, you know, and as the commander, either that was, you know, it would just crush me to see anything happen to any one of those guys. And that must have been September of 12. And then I got hurt in November. And that to me, and I felt kind of bad because I was like, here I am, knowing that things are probably going to get bad, and I'm kind of begging God to keep the guys safe, you know, instead of being faithful leading up to that point. I'm just like, realize like, okay, this is going to be bad. I need your help. I kind of felt that way. It's kind of selfish, but that was like the first real God plea in my life. And even through the stuff I had endured or just been through before in the past, you know, we'd look at it, you know, hellacious firefights and be like, man, that was crazy. We were lucky, you know, but the whole time I didn't realize like, man, we were protected by God himself, because there's no way we should be alive. You know, he got us out of this, you know, just the grace of God. And so I never looked at it that way, but for some reason in 2012, I was like, man, this is a different feeling, like a different vibe, you know, just we're in a horrible area, severely outnumbered. And I was like, it's just not going to be a good trip. And then, like I said, that was probably September. And then November is the day my life changed for the better, to be honest with you, when I got my leg blown off. And that might be a weird thing to hear. And certainly at times it might be a weird thing to say, because of what happened that day changed my path drastically. And like I said, I didn't live recklessly. I wasn't the best person. I wasn't the worst person. And this is my friend Terrence back home said, he's like, God plucked you off of the battlefield that day and set you on a new course that you needed to go on. And I was like, I never really thought of it that way, but I believe he's right. And we're at the ROP, the rite of passage, the morning after. I was talking to your mother, and I didn't know who she was. I assumed she was your mother, and I was like, how are you, Mrs. Wright? She said, yes. So we had sat and we had spoke maybe 15 or 20 minutes. And I was like, Mrs. Wright, I was like, and I told her the same thing. I was like, this may be strange for you to hear, but it's like, this was probably the best. Not probably, getting my leg blown off was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it has led me on the path where I've gone today. And I've met the people that are in my life today who've formed me to be a better person. Yeah, so that was really transformational in my life, and it was all God behind it. And I had a near-death experience when I was sitting there bleeding out. So when it happened, do we just get into it, or?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to hear about that day.
Okay.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a part of what I want to know about that day.
Sure.
How the day started, what that mission was, and just walk me through that day, man, and up to the point that you are now. Yeah, I want to hear that story.
Okay.
If you're willing to tell it.
Of course. I never really told it until recently, because I didn't think there was anything special about it, to be honest with you. Or I've lived an ordinary life, I guess, I feel, in a lot of ways. But the night before, the day before, we went on a raid. And so we hit this compound, and we come back. My truck hits an IED, rips the truck in half. Grace of God, we survived. I got it on video. One of the ISR platforms filmed it. And so we survived. Truck's immobile. It's nighttime now. We're not going anywhere. And so the next morning, we're waiting for the wrecker, the tow truck, basically. For those who don't know what a wrecker is, the military tow truck. They're waiting to kind of clear the route and come to us. So we're just kind of hanging out. And of course, I'm like, we need to start asking some people, like, what's going on here? And we had been through this area. We were hitting targets in this area. So we're like knocking on doors, and people were kind of out and about, and said, hey, who put these IEDs in the road? And of course, the Afghans were like, what happened? What are you talking about? Like, you didn't hear my truck get blown up like 15 feet from here? And the guy was like, what? Like playing kind of dumb, but they're being coerced. A lot of these people, they knew the Taliban were watching and see what they would say. And I get it. So, a bad guy shows up, one of the guys that we were kind of looking for. And so my team sergeant finds him, who was also our intel guy, finds him, and he's kind of showing him he's detaining him. And I look at my buddy George, who was our 18 Delta, our medic. I said, George, go help Carlos and get that guy in a gray putt, get him off the street, like this, basically a little village. And so I went to go make a sit rep back to the boss. I was like, let me call this in and see what's going on. And so I had a bunch of stuff that we had found in my arms. And so I just had my rifle, and I started walking back to a truck with a radio because my truck was destroyed. And I stopped dead in my tracks, and I looked straight down. And it was just that sixth sense, that God sense when you know something's not right. And I looked straight down, and I said, man, there was no clear evidence of an IED, like a freshly disturbed ground or wires or any of that stuff. And as an engineer, like a demo guy, when I was enlisted, I did a ton of IED destruction. So I'm looking around, I'm like, I don't see anything. And so I sat there for 30, 45 seconds, just kind of assessing. I was like, well, you got to carry on. And so when I stepped forward, my left foot hit that ground. It was just that pop bang and like a
Pressure
whiz.
plate.
And so I had stepped on an IED, but I knew immediately, I knew what had happened. And the way it happened is the blast came straight up. So it ripped my eyes open, severe lacerations. My left foot was gone initially, just my foot, but my right leg was just filleted open. Like you've seen it. Like my right leg was just a mess. Lost part of my finger, thumb was hanging off, and just a bunch of stuff going on at once. And so immediately I said, I recognized, okay, he stepped on an IED, find my rifle. And so I start looking for my rifle. And I'm burnt, fingers are a mess. I can't find anything, and I can't see. Next thing, checklist, find a tourniquet and start fixing yourself. Fumbling around, couldn't find any of my tourniquets. Next thing was stay awake. And so I start calling for my friend George. And George and I had been on a team together for a while, first time in combat together. And so I'm like, George, come help me. I'm like yelling for him. And so George, he shows up because he wasn't too far from me, but he turned around and he just ran straight through, the danger zone. And he gets to work, and I can hear him, so I can hear in his voice that he was like, this was not good. And so mentally, I'm still processing this. So I said, okay, he's in shock. I need to keep him calm. And so the first thing I asked him, it's like, hey, George, I was like, do I still have my junk? And he's like, you're good, Dano. And I was like, okay. And I remember laying back in this crater, and it was the first thing. I don't know why I thought of it, but I was like, maybe it's a good time to kind of just break the ice, and kind of get him to kind of relax. But it's still that's where I went. And so, and of course, that brought me some comfort. And so I just kind of laid back, and I was like, okay, George is a very talented medic. I was like, I feel completely confident that he's going to do what he can to kind of keep me alive. And then Carlos comes, and Carlos is from Mexico originally, heavy accent. And Carlos comes, and he's on my left side, and he is just cranking tourniquets on me. And he's like, "Hey, Chief, like, I'm putting on the tourniquets." I'm like, "It hurts, Carlos." I remember telling him, and the conversation was just like we're having now. It was very calm. And I was like, "Carlos, it hurts so bad." He's like, "I know, because I'm sure you've experienced tourniquet training where you got to crank that thing. But when you're doing it for real, it is a whole new level of pain." And so he's just cranking on me and cranking on me. I think he put 2 or 3 tourniquets on me because it was just gushing. And so finally get things under control. Brandon, who was my demo guy, my engineer, he's clearing a medevac, HLZ, and our combat control guy, Matt, combat controller, he's up there working the 9 line and getting that bird in. And man, grace of God, there was a Black Hawk at one of the next operating bases just up the road, pulls those guys over, dumps them into a field. And, I remember as this was happening, I think in order for me to stay present, I would tell us like, "Hey, make sure," because we call it the Taliban chicken farm, where we blew up this guy's IED house and a chicken flew out the back. We got it on tape, so we call the Taliban chicken farm. We're like, "Hey, tell those guys to make sure that they're pulling security back by the Taliban chicken farm. Make sure these guys are doing this." And they're like, "Chief, like, we got it. It's okay." And I'm like, but for me mentally, it was important to kind of work through and stay awake and stay focused. And so medevac is inbound. And I remember telling my friend Brandon, it's a weird sensation. I literally could feel myself dying, just bleeding out. Like I said, my right side, like everything you see here was just open. So all of this up to, upper thigh.
Did you have arterial bleed on your right side?
Everything. And so I just felt it draining. And I was like, yeah, I told my friend Brandon, I was like, "Look, I want you to take me home." And I was like, that's a tough thing to say to someone, but it's what you would do with someone or someone would do with you in those moments, being like a team member. Right. And so I remember telling him, I was like, "I don't think I can stay awake." I was like, I'm trying to fight. And so I was like, "But I want you to take me home." I was like, "I don't think I'm going to make it." And so the last thing I remember was bird inbound, and they're like, cover him up. And so they put one of those like casually, like the space blanket on me. And then I just remember getting blasted with dirt from the rotor wash coming down and getting loaded on the bird. And then it was lights out. Like and then from that, this was like a huge pivotal point in my faith journey. Prior to this deployment, we went on leave, right? Everyone goes on vacation. And a friend of mine, he was one of my weapons guys named Jose Jaquez. He was killed on leave. He was shot. And so we buried him before we went to Afghanistan. And so tragic, like no one expects these things to happen. So Jose was murdered and passes away. And so at this point, when it's a weird experience, like no drugs. And when I had been shot before and I had a fentanyl lollipop and we're still in the kill zone. This is 08. And I was like, I just threw that thing out because it's like, I cannot function like this in a high threat situation. So I threw that fentanyl lollipop out because it was so mind altering. And so when this was happening, I was like, I need to be in a state of mind where I can still make decisions. This is where my mind was at. So I was like, just let me be. And so when I got on that bird, everything just was done. Like, and I could feel it. And I had this out of like just going upwards. And I could see things like passing me. Like you'd see like kind of like almost like a hyperspace, like a science fiction movie where they're traveling, hit hyperspace and the stars are like,
yeah,
that was what it was like. And then eventually I started seeing this light, and it was the brightest, purest white light I've ever seen. And I can't describe it. There's no ways to describe it. And it made me feel good. Like I was curious. I wasn't afraid, but it was still like, okay, this is a good thing. But I still had the conscious mind to think, which was kind of crazy. And so I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, like this isn't a threat, but I feel good. And like I said, the purity of this light was unreal. And as I got closer, I could see Jose's face in it. And I was like, it's Jose. And he was so happy. Like he was smiling, like this peace was like overwhelming. And I immediately was like, this is okay. And I was like, Jose is here to guide me, to the kingdom, for judgment. And I felt good. I was like, it just made me feel really good. And there was no communication, but I could understand what he was relaying to me without speaking, just by looking. And I don't know how long we sat there in this moment. I think the medevac was probably only 11 minutes, so it wasn't a long time. And so, but at a point, I behind Jose was like these black, almost like tentacles or like a ripped, torn cloak that started coming around. It was like waving, and it was trying to pull me, and it was trying to pull me down. And it was the blackest black you could imagine. Being outside in the middle of the night, in the middle of the woods, with no light pollution at all, or no light at all, or in a closet, like doesn't even describe it, because it was so black. But it was trying to get me, like it was pulling at me to pull me down. I was like, this thing is trying to pull me down. And I felt it was like some kind of demon or something that was trying to take me to hell. And I was terrified from the second that it kind of emerged. Just complete terror, like I had never experienced in my life. But Jose's face never changed. Like his smile, and everything about him. And I was like, he's telling me it's okay. Like Jose is protecting me. He was sent. His death saved my life. Tragic as that is, because he left behind his wife and his children. And that was it. And then I just had that separation where I just was going backwards. And I was like, we got to Kandahar Airfield, and a burst of white light just came over me. And the flight medic was like, hey, he's back. He's back. And the first question out of his mouth was, he's like, do you know where you are? And the first thing that came to my brain was the line from the Guns N' Roses song, Welcome to the Jungle, where he's like, do you know where you are? You're in the jungle, baby. You're going to die. Like that breakdown part. That's the first thing that came to my mind. And so I was about to say it. But I was like, this is a pretty serious situation. And I was like, I should just answer the guy. You know what I mean? So I was like, yeah, I'm in Kandahar. And he's like, okay, like get him out. And then from there, my journey, from off of that point of injury to Kandahar and having my initial surgeries. And by pure chance, the other half of my team was in Kandahar doing admin stuff, like a refit. And so they were there, and they heard my battle roster number being called. And so they get from the task force headquarters over to the Roll 3 hospital. So they were there, which was like pretty awesome. I couldn't see those dudes. I got pictures of, wearing like the big old people glasses, like the big black ones.
Oh yeah.
Just bandaged and stuff like that. But those guys were there. I was cracking jokes. We were laughing and having a good time. A good time, air quotes. But yeah, that was like the journey to where I am today.
I mean, to me, that's probably that's the most, you're just such an unbelievable dude, man, because that's the most powerful testimony that I've ever captured on this podcast before. I mean, that experience that you had and the way you described it so articulately, and praise the Lord that he's given you that testimony, man, and that he brought you back to share that with tens of thousands of people here. Thank you, Lord, for that.
Amen. It was, like I said, I realized it. Like, I look at it this way, like God, he broke me before like he blessed me big time. And that's what it took. You know, it's like, you're going to experience this. And of course there's people, especially people in the medical industry are like, well, when this injury happens, typically this is what goes on in the brain. Chemicals are dumping to make you feel good and, kill the pain receptors and all stuff. But I was like, what I experienced is next level. Like, it was proof that God is real, that good and evil exists. And the consequences, what is it? The wages of sin is death. So for me to experience that, just a taste of it, and I'm like, man, there's people who suffer in complete damnation in eternity because of the choices they've made and all that stuff. I was like, what I felt for those few moments lasts eternity. But there's people who've done a lot of good in the world who get to experience the kingdom of God in paradise. And I will say this. There was times like I fall short every day. And there was times after this experience where God showed me his grace, where I'd still kind of do my own thing. You know what I mean? Like, man, I can't messing up. Even knowing, like I said, having that experience, and I was like, well, I'm still a human being. I still fall short, but I work hard to be better every day, be a better person, and do what I can. But it's a very real thing. Like I said, every single one of us will experience that judgment or the afterlife. We all die, so it's kind of like people are the great unknown of what happens when we die. I don't know. I experienced a little bit. I've seen proof of what good and what bad can happen, but man, it was powerful. And I kept that to myself for a long time. I didn't share that with a lot of people. I shared with Jose's wife. So I got medevac to Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio. And Jose was from a town called Divine, which is outside of San Antonio. And so Megan shows up, to the hospital. And by this time, I could see. And so Megan shows up. And I was like, and there was people, and I was like, everyone get out except for Megan. And I was like, Megan, I saw Jose. The same thing I said to you. I was like, his death saved my life. And I felt so bad saying that, like gutted me, because I felt that's a hell of a thing to say to somebody. Like her husband just died. And here I am saying like, good thing he died because I'm alive because of that. But I was like, I didn't want her to feel like his death was in vain. And that's hard because she lost her husband and the father of her kids. And so for me to say like, like his death saved me, and she's like, I believe it, but I told her, I was like, man, it was such a beautiful thing to see Jose.
Wow.
And I was like, our time on earth is very short, but we will see Jose again, but it's, man, that was just the beginning. And like I said, there's skeptics out there who say, like a scientific point of view, like, oh, this is just the brain and the body's way of kind of making yourself comfortable. And I'm like, perhaps, but I was like, there's something beyond that science is not going to be able to explain, and we all will experience it at some point in our lives, at the end of our life. So. But yeah, that for me was like hey, dummy, get right. You know what I mean? Like, it is real. Like, I'm real. Like God kind of smacking me in the face, like he broke me, before like he really blessed me, and that road to the redemption, and the road, it's not been easy, but it's a road I'm still on every day. So.
Wow, man.
It's hard to explain. It really is, because and I kept it to myself for a long time. I didn't want to hear about other people's near-death experiences, and there's a ton of them, but there's so many things that are common. It's like, you know what? I don't know why I'm afraid of this. I'm just going to embrace it. So I started reading books about near-death experience, started watching interviews and documentaries about people, and there's so many similarities. It's kind of like the paths start at different places, but they all end up at the same endpoint. And I'm like, yeah, this is real. And these are people from different faith backgrounds, different ethnicities, different continents, different states here in the U.S., but it all ends at the same point. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
they're all human. We all possess the same type of spirit. Yeah.
And so I'm curious to learn more and get connected with people who have experienced that and hear their stories, you know, and it's just an unbelievable experience, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I couldn't imagine trying to describe that experience in human terms, like words that we use to describe our physical reality, because you're trying to describe something that is separate from the three-dimensional physical reality that we live in with human terms. I feel like so many of the things that we read in Scripture, especially the Old Testament prophets, when they were receiving these visions and these things, these heavenly visions, and they're trying to write it in words, and you think, what's this guy trying to describe? Like, you know, in Ezekiel with the wheel, and they're just trying to describe angels and all this stuff. It's like, yeah, man, they're trying to put this vision of a whole nother realm into descriptive words that don't go beyond our three-dimensional reality. It's an impossibility to describe it perfectly, you know?
It's a kingdom not of this world.
Yeah.
And you experience these things not of this world. And it's very, like I said, even the colors, like the purest, brightest white. Where logically, I shouldn't be able to look at this thing because it is so bright. But yet, I could still look at it without any pain or any unclarity. And then, like, as the closer I got, you know, I could make out it was Jose, like this pure being of, you know, of him. And the same thing with whatever that demon or whatever that entity was, like the purest, the deepest black imaginable, 10 times over. Like I said, you can go in the middle of the night, be in a closet and with no light, still doesn't compare to that.
You know what's interesting too is it's almost like those, both the light and the darkness, it was more than just something that you were perceiving visually. Is the way you described it, there was a feeling attached to it, like it had an impact on experientially in what you were going through, man. Yeah, that's powerful, brother. You talked about too the reality that good and evil exists, and I'm sure you saw that throughout the course of your career in multiple different scenarios and situations, and then you got to see it represented in this whole nother realm that, like, okay, it's strange because doing that job, when you are in these places, there's places in the world that people don't understand. And it's like you go to these places where there is real evil and you get close to it. I've experienced it in a few places during my career. You get close to it, and it's almost like the veil is thinned out a little bit, and weird things happen, man. I mean, weird things happen in those places, in those situations. There's something to it. It's not a developed thought, but there's something to being in those places, in those situations, that something gets thinner, that veil between good and evil, and you are exposed to the reality that these things do exist, and you just perceive them way more tangibly than you perceive the idea of this battle between good and evil when you're sitting in a podcast studio in North Georgia somewhere and you're completely safe and just living a normal lifestyle. And it's something about the pressure, the danger, being close to that evil. Weird stuff happens.
I've had a lot of experience, excuse me, like paranormal. Probably the most, I guess, telling encounters that I had is my wife comes from New England. And so the first time I walked into her auntie's house, I was like, man, there's something's not right here. And for years they were like, no, you're crazy. And it wasn't until after a long time, many, many years, they're like, yeah, there's something that's here. And I would always go down to the basement. It's like typical New England old home. And I'd get to this point where the stairs turn down and kind of make a U. I was like, there's something right here. It's like, this is the spot. And it wasn't until years later after they'd moved. I was like, they're like, yeah, there was something there. Like weird things would happen. Glasses would break, and I found out later that they would kind of interact with this entity, like, oh, if you can do this, if you're here, move this book, and like break this glass and they're like, yeah, we got to stop. This is, and I was like, yeah, why would you do that? I'd always ask them. I mean, I've had a few of those experiences. It's just like a sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's always been like, I've been in tune with it.
I think there's something about being a warrior, and we grew up like that's the men that raised us were warriors, and that's the environment that we grew up in. It shaped us. It shaped our minds. It shaped our thinking. It shaped our perception of reality. And there's something about being a warrior, maybe not for everyone, but I would say it's true in my experience, and it sounds like it's true in your experience. And I can't put my finger on it, but it in some way allows you to perceive that stuff, I think, to a higher degree, or maybe to a higher level than just your average everyday person who doesn't have those experiences of difficulty and repeated stress and fear and evil and good and all this stuff. I just can't put my finger on it, but I think there is something there, man.
Yeah, it's wild. Yeah, I think you're right. I know you're right. It's kind of but then again, people, they will always have a way to discount that. Oh, it's just this or it's just that. But I think once you realize that it does exist, good, evil, like it becomes you become aware of it, and how it impacts people's lives, the decisions they make, the things they do. Like there's things that kind of drive people to make those decisions, behave certain ways.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a wild thing. I'm not an expert. I'm not a theologian or anything as well, but it is a wild thing.
I don't think there are any experts. I really don't. I don't think there are any experts because we're just seeing very, like, not clearly, but we're seeing a little bit behind the veil of something that none of us as human can completely perceive. So I don't think there are any experts. I think there are only experiences that logical human beings like you and I, who are in our right mind, who aren't off the rails, we have these experiences and we think about them deeply and we try to understand them. And I think that's about as close as you can get to being an expert about these things. So let's take a quick break, Daniel. We got a lot more ground to cover, man. Okay. Dude, you just kicked it off with
it's like, you want to get into it
with a powerful testimony, man. That's the way to start a podcast right there. Look, guys, I spent years of my life trying to find a good quality and comfortable holster. I was really drawing a blank on this. I mean, from everything I was issued while I was in the Navy, even to when I got out, searching all these different companies. Surely somebody makes a good quality, comfortable, functional holster. Man, I was drawing a blank until I found Falco holsters. I have been using Falco holsters exclusively for probably going on 2 years now. Literally, I have thrown away every other holster that I have ever purchased, and Falco holsters are the only ones that I will use because they are the best, hands down, across the board, from the styling to the comfort to the design to the functionality. You just ain't going to beat them. I want to just be straight up with you. These holsters right here from Falco are not going to be anything like what you're used to using, stuff that you're buying from your local sporting goods store or your big box store. When you put your hands on a Falco holster, no matter what the model is, you're going to say, holy smokes, this thing right here has been thought through, and it is indeed a work of art. You're going to appreciate it because it is going to be comfortable and functional, and they look good. All their stuff, man, it's got some swag to it, and that means something to me. So this particular holster is the outside of the waistband holster that I carry. The model is the C631L. There'll be links in the description. This is made out of full grain Italian leather. Again, everything is thought through. It's molded perfectly to the pistol that I carry every day. And dang, it is just a work of art. It even this holster comes with a whole kit that's a break-in set. And this is going to help you kind of soften or break in this leather when you receive it and you put your pistol in it for the first time. They think through all the details. Not only do they have outside the waistband shoulder holsters, but they do have the in the waistband holster, and this is a great example right here. This is actually a hybrid. The model on this is the A911L, and this kind of gives you the best of both worlds between a leather in the waistband holster, which is going to give you, to some degree, a higher level of comfort. All of these edges are hand finished, and they put some sort of finishing coating or something on them to keep them from wear. And then around the trigger guard, you actually have a Kydex portion of the holster to give you full coverage and protection of that trigger guard, which increases, obviously, safety of carrying your pistol in that appendix position. This wing right here is adjustable and also removable if you don't want it, but this just basically helps press the holster into your body so that you don't have a big signature when you are trying to conceal carry. I promise you, if you guys get a holster from Falco, there's absolutely no way that you're going to be disappointed in these products because, buddy, I'm going to tell you straight up, they've been thought through, worked through, they've been made with care, and they actually really stand behind their products too. I didn't know it, but there's a limited lifetime warranty on these holsters, 30-day buyback guarantee. They know they're not making junk, and man, that's pretty awesome. So check them out at falcoholsters.com. There will be a link in the description of this episode. Makes a big difference, I guarantee you. Thanks, guys. Enough said. All right, look, guys, I'm going to be straight up with you. One of the things that I struggle with most, especially in business, is organization, all right? And that's what I'm going to tell you today about Sure Send. This is a one-stop portal right here that's going to help you with your customer relationship management, all right? It's built specifically for real estate agencies and real estate agent teams to be able to just have everything in one place that helps them manage their customer relationships. But as I look at this thing, I'm like, well, daggone, why couldn't we use this? And I don't see any reason why we couldn't. It's got everything, again, in this one portal right here. There's no plugins, no crazy marketing popping up all over your screen. It's got your dashboard, your tasks, your people, your calendar, your newsletters on here, reporting, contracts, call lists. I mean, everything that you could possibly think of that you need to keep up with as a business owner or as a real estate agent. I mean, I can't see how this isn't going to make you 10 times more efficient than you probably already are. Another thing that I love about it, it has a tab in it called Win the Day. My buddy Andy Frisilla would love that. This tab right here actually allows your team to set goals that you guys want to achieve, and then it allows you guys to compete against each other in order to achieve those goals. I think it's a really, really cool idea. There's also a built-in referral network so that you can get recommended or recommend other professionals on the platform. And everything, again, is live from day one. Marketing, automation, communications, tracking. Like I said, no plugins, consultants, or year-long contracts. This is on a month-to-month basis also. There are no hidden fees. You can give it a shot and try it out at suresenddemo.com. I'll attach links to this in the description of this episode. But for me, it seems like a really awesome tool, and they've basically thought through everything that I would think of and some things that I wouldn't think of to help me be a more efficient business owner and teammate. Check it out, suresenddemo.com. Look, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you guys about American financing today, and hold tight. You might want to hear this, especially if you have some credit card debt. I've had credit card debt before. There was a time back when I was in the military that I had over $10,000 of credit card debt. I'll never forget what that felt like, because the interest rates on that debt were 20% or more. And I'll never forget feeling like, how on earth am I ever going to pay this off? Crazy stuff happens in life. Emergencies, the cost of living's going up. Maybe you've gotten yourself in a bind just using these credit cards to pay for your day-to-day expenses. That's where American Financing comes in. They can actually help you get rid of that credit card debt by tapping into your home equity. If you are a homeowner with mortgage rates currently in the 5s, and that's going to replace that huge interest rate that you're paying on those credit cards, all right? So it's a pretty awesome service. On average, American Financing is saving their customers about $800 a month. That's nearly $10,000 a year back into your own pocket. I don't know who wouldn't want to save $10,000 a year, especially when it's coming from money that you're throwing at these high-interest credit card loans that you're never going to see a return on that stuff. It's just disappearing. So this is huge, guys. It only takes about 10 minutes to find out what you can save. There are no upfront costs, fees, and no obligations to talk to a salary-based mortgage consultant. If you check it out now, you could potentially delay 2 mortgage payments. Super easy, super smooth. If you got credit card debt, you should check out American Financing. You can give them a call at 866-886-9262. That's 866-886-9262. Or you can check them out online at americanfinancing.net/3of7. All of that will be linked in the description of this episode. I hope this helps one of you guys out. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks, American Financing, for providing awesome service. Enough said. I went through kind of that resonates with me, man, because the stories that we have, it's just, we lived them, and we each have our own unique background and our own unique experiences in life. And because it's the life that you lived and you experienced it the way you did, you don't think that there's anything to it. I mean, you just think, well, doesn't everyone know the things that I know, or the things that I learned along the path? That, because the things that you learn just become, they seem like common sense to you, right? And you have to have someone that comes alongside you and tells you, hey man, like, other people need to hear that, because that's not normal. Like, the things that you have learned, the way that you think, the way that you operate, it's normal to you. It's not normal to other people. And there are other people out there who are really struggling and who are really in a rut. And these few little things that we have, it will help them. The same thing happened to me. It was, for me, it was Jesse Itzler, my friend Jesse. He was one of the first people that I really became friends with when I got out of the military, who wasn't part of the military, the first lifelong civilian that I became friends with. And Jesse and I did a run together, and I was teaching him very simple things like the power of the spoken word and just how to just stay calm and be positive, and the way you reacted when you had just been blown up by an IED. You're able to just stay calm and crack jokes. You know, you're leveraging those things during that difficult time in order to survive and to calm your teammates down and accomplish the mission. The mission at that point was to get you out of there and keep you alive. And like just teaching him those simple things, it's like he's like, oh my gosh, I never even thought about this. Like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't be talking about all this negative stuff when I'm out here trying to do something hard, you know? And when that person comes alongside you and kind of points that out to you and then pushes you to do it, that's such a valuable gift, man. Jesse did that for me. That's why your story resonates so much with me, you know, and having Amy come alongside you and kind of push you in that direction. And it's a valuable gift, man.
And it wasn't until last year when I was with Amy, and I ran into somebody who'd been through something traumatic. And I'm a shorts guy 24/7, regardless of where I am. It's just in my blood. I grew up.
Unless you're riding a bull.
You saw the picture.
I saw the pictures.
That was no contest. They're like, you got to wear pants. I'm like, okay, I'll wear pants. But so I walk around and people see my prosthetic and they call it the carnitas leg, just like gross looking, like cooked meat. And someone had saw me online. They're like, dude, I've seen what you do. I see you go out and you do these rucks, riding a bull, whatever. And they're like, it gives me hope. And I was in a real bad spot. And I was like, I'm just a guy. I'm a nobody. That's why I said I'm a nobody. And they're like, it inspired me to overcome what I've been doing and what happened to me and all these things. And I'm like, thank you. Yeah, I didn't know what to say other than say, you know what? Like, there's still hope. There's a way to overcome these obstacles. Whether it's amputation, some form of trauma, or just being lost, alcoholism, whatever it is. I was like, man, it's not the dead end you think it is. And so to hear people say these things to me, and for me to like stop acting selfish and be like, you should be a little more bold and tell your story, because someone will benefit from hearing that. Even if it's just one person, it's worth it. And so Amy has been probably the biggest cheerleader. She's like, you need to go tell people about what you've experienced and how you're overcoming these things. Mm-hmm. And, and I'm like, I guess so. I'm still kind of like we talked about, there's nothing, it's just my day-to-day stuff. There's nothing extraordinary to these things. I'm just a regular guy. I'm a nobody, but actually seeing someone who would follow me and seeing things. And I don't do these things that inspire people. I do things because I want to go do things, to challenge myself. And just like, you can't lose that edge, in my opinion. Like, it's got to stay sharp, mentally and physically. And so, like, to hear someone say that to my face was like pretty eye-opening. And I was like, you know what? And I'm an introverted person by nature anyway. So I'm like, maybe it's time to kind of just, if someone wants to talk about it, I'll talk about it, because it's not about me. It's about the next person. And if that helps someone become lifted up from the bottom, rock bottom, and that's just the first step to like their journey towards healing or whatever it is. And I was like, maybe this is what I'm supposed to do, or yeah. And I think that's what, I don't know, it's a weird thing for me to kind of grasp still, because in my mind, I still really firmly believe there's nothing special about me.
That's one of my favorite lines of the SEAL Creed. And I think a line that resonates with people the most, even people who didn't grow up in a warrior culture or, according to a warrior ethos, is I am a common human with an uncommon desire to succeed. And that's the beautiful thing about when we have that realization about ourselves. And I didn't always think that about myself. I got really prideful when I got my trident. I mean, there was many years where I thought I was better than everyone around me, other than the other team guys. Like if you weren't wearing a trident, you were like supposed to be a squire. You know what I mean? Like that, and just being young and dumb, and the Lord in his grace just breaking me down on so many occasions, exposing me to so many failures and allowing me to fail so many times, and come to the realization that that line in the SEAL Creed is true about me and everyone else here. We are simply common humans, just like everybody else. And we've just had, I guess the only thing that's uncommon is just our desire to succeed, to accomplish the mission, to not quit. And everybody can be that person. Like, you don't have to be a gifted athlete. You don't have to catch a break in life. You
Absolutely.
don't have to have any sort of talent. It's saying you don't need any of that. All you need to do is just want to keep going. Like, just keep going, man. That's the, if there's a secret, that's the secret. Don't stay in the rut. If you don't like where you're at, don't keep doing the same thing over and over again. Just move.
Sounds easy. It's easy, right? It's like an easy concept. Just keep moving.
It's not easy at first. But in my opinion, and I'd be interested to see what you think about this, it becomes easier through repetition. Like, it becomes easier when you have, like, the first 5,000 reps, every one of them are hard. When you're in a spot, you know it's a bad spot and you got to move, and it's really hard to take that first step. But when you get to 10,000 reps, all of a sudden it just starts to become how you operate. Like your default reaction to whatever the difficulty is, whatever the stress is, whatever the tragedy is, whatever. You just know. It's like you build confidence along the way and it becomes your default reaction. You just say, okay, I acknowledge what I'm experiencing right now, and it's going to be hard, but I have the knowledge that I'm going to move through this, in the right direction. I'm going to grow from this. I'm going to learn from this. And you just can't, that's the part of it you can't cheat, is the repetition.
You're right. Repetition, like momentum. But also, I think at least for me, in my experience, is community. Like finding people that are going to be there for you, good, bad, indifferent. So when you're going through and you're doing you're going through the repetitions, and sometimes you go backwards. There's people there to encourage you to keep moving forward, get up and keep moving forward and keep trying. And to be there for them when they're in the same position. So
you have to have that.
You have to.
You have to have that.
And for people to think they can't do it alone, that's part of their problem. Well, I can do this, or I don't need anybody. I beg to differ. I'm like, man, you need people, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah, and I think there's so much confusion around that because of, for the past 5 years, 6 years at least that I've been on social media, so much of the mindset message out there for people is you just gotta be hard, and you got this. You don't need anybody. Like, you can forge enough strength in and of yourself and within yourself to get through it's like, no, that's not the reality, man. And there's so much confusion around it because that message sells, because that's something easy, because building community and maintaining community is difficult. There's a difficulty that comes along with that, but it's an essential and key element to getting through the suck of this life. Not that it always sucks, but it's gonna suck really bad sometimes.
And who do you turn to?
That's it. There's gonna come a point that you're not gonna be able to turn inward. You're not gonna be able to turn to yourself, because your tank is gonna be empty, dude. And whether you push yourself to that point by your own free will, like you're entering into some challenge that really breaks you down, or life throws something at you, like getting your leg blown off, or a terminal illness or something like that. There's coming a point where you're going to need to have people around you, and you're going to need to be able to turn to them, talk to them, and receive the truth from them about whatever it is you're going through. I agree.
And
100%.
to find people that are willing to tell you that truth is so valuable.
And you don't need many.
Because someone who's going to be like, yeah, man, it's okay. And you have that one person like, it's not okay because of whatever. Like, this is a dangerous path you're going on, and it's not going to be a good path. You know, so to have people who will tell you have real talk with you, that's super, super valuable too.
Man, it is. It is. I wanted to ask you, going back to that day when you had your injury, when you got blown up, how were you able to not freak out, like, in that moment? What do you attribute that to? And how do we build that?
It's a good question. I don't know the answer to it. And I even as a kid, growing up, very mellow. You know, my mom's Hawaiian. So people are like, man, you're always on island time. You got like salt water in your veins, bro. I'm like, I guess, maybe. But it's just kind of like how I've been wired. You know, never really let kind of like things fluster me and freak me out. Even in combat, you be in a gunfight or responding to a situation, you just kind of like, you have to process it. And it's how you process, I guess, your ability to process it. Like, those things are just moments to me of like, okay, like if you can't control yourself, like this can get out of control really fast. So maintaining good order and awareness of oneself. I don't know how to achieve that. It was just natural for me. And so for me to be able to, like that moment when like my leg was blown off and this leg was wide open, for me, I was like, just stay calm. That was the first kind of internal checklist item. Just stay calm and work through these items. Tourniquet or weapon, tourniquet, stay awake. And then the rest, like have some fun, tell some jokes. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I don't know what the answer is. Like I said, I've seen the opposite of that too, especially in combat, where guys are like freaking out and are, you know, it doesn't help the situation. Whether that's, I've seen it responding to car wrecks. People are freaking out. I'm like, calm down, right? Get it under control. Like, this is what we need to do. So I think it's the ability just to process information, and everyone processes that information. That process is different for everybody. I don't know. I'm sure it's coachable. You can train people in just repetition, put them through stress exercises so they get accustomed to kind of, okay, this works. This doesn't work. You know, manic behavior is not going to make things better. Being calm and collective will save your life, will make the situation better. But like I said, I don't know if genetics has anything to do with it. Like, people always like, man, you're just like, you're on island time. You're always just chill. You know, I'm like, maybe that has something to do with it. But I'm not sure. But, you know, that's where everyone tells me, at least. They're like, man, it's because you got the Hawaiian blood in your veins. But
well, I'll tell you, man, as you told your story, I picked out kind of one key element and I don't know how much it plays into your ability to stay calm, especially in that moment when you were blown up. But I think one of your superpowers is you care about other people. And I think the reason that's a superpower is because, as you told your story, you talked about how you were concerned about the mental state of your medic. Your medic knew this was bad. And whether you knew you were doing it or not, in that moment, what you did is you thought about him, you focused on him and leading him well, which was to your benefit in that moment. But nonetheless, you were concerned about leading him well. And what that does, man, is that pulls you out of your own head. And if you can focus on another person, it will help you stay calm in stressful situations, in pain and difficulty, uh, to a pretty high degree. And I would pose the theory that your care for others and your desire to lead well and to make sure your teammates around you are thinking right, doing right, are healthy. Like, I would say that plays a lot into, your ability to just maintain your composure, especially in a moment that's stressful.
I mean, those little moments matter.
For
Like,
sure.
seconds matter. I lived through it. Like I think going back to military kind of doctrine and planning, like the basic fundamentals, task and purpose, give someone a task and tell them why. And so in my mind, at that moment when I'm laying there like a stuck pig bleeding out, I was like, okay, keep George calm, task, purpose, because I want to stay alive. You know
That's
what I mean?
it, man.
So in the best way to do that in these situations, and I've seen a lot of people die. The ability just to keep people calm, like, because it's not normal. These things aren't like something you typically see every day. A guy with, missing limbs, or 10 people. I saw 10 people die in front of my face in Afghanistan one time. Like, that's not normal. So it's like, okay, what do we do now? You got to stay calm, assess, enact. It's like the ODA loop.
Yeah.
But if you can't get yourself under control, things will unravel pretty quickly. So, and it's just through repetition. And sadly, some of those traumatic experiences in combat, they're earned the hard way by seeing death, destruction, or whatever else. So it's a good question.
Yeah, it's something to think about for sure. I mean, it's just magnificent to again hear your story and how you were able to maintain your composure in the midst of that really traumatic moment, and the pain and the fear and everything that comes along with it. Yeah, it's definitely something to think about and to study, because it's important. I want to go back to, I would love to hear the story of the mission and the day when you sustained your first injury, and I guess got your first Purple Heart when you were shot, and what that was like and how that impacted you.
So this was a rotation in 2007 into 2008. This was a 2008 trip. So I'm an engineer on an A team, demo guy. And so we operating out of Kandahar. And so we place called Firebase Mahalik, right outside Kandahar City. And so we got tasked to join one of our sister A teams from our company to go to this place called Firebase Anaconda up in Aruzgan, northern Kandahar. And so winter resupply, massive movement. And I think to date, it's still the largest ground convoy operation in the Afghan war and special operations history. So as the demo guy, as an engineer on an A team, everyone's got a primary and an alternate duty. So primary is explosives for me. Alternate was logistics. And so we're like, you're out there, how many trucks, how many empty trucks in case these things roll over, the normal stuff. And we go to Kandahar Airfield, we pick up about 200 of these jingle trucks, like these Afghan moving trucks. They're ridiculous. And so people who don't know what a jingle truck is, it's like their pride and joy, kind of like a dump truck, moving truck, but they put these chains on there that jingle, and they paint these wild scenes from movies or the terrain, where they come from. It tells a story of the driver. And so I loved looking at those things. They were so cool. And so we're loading up because we're in a Ruzgan, it gets pretty bad in the wintertime. So really inaccessible by vehicle because of the terrain and the weather conditions. And so you got to load them up, ammo, food, water, basic stuff. And so we load up these trucks. We go to Turncout and pick up another team from my company. And so, and then there were some elements from headquarters from our task force with us too, a couple trucks. And so from there, I'll never forget our company sergeant major was like, I'll see you guys in 6 days. And I was like, I wish, I was like, it's going to take us probably 20. And so guys are already kind of like miserable from the get-go because we're slow moving. You're dealing with Afghans who are their own creature in their own right.
So they're driving.
So they're driving their vehicles and we're hurting. Like, it's like a cattle drive. You got people coming back like, let's go. Like, it was constant. And at times we'd just be doing this massive accordion effect, where the guy would fall asleep. And so you're like, what is going on here? And there's no radios, none of that stuff in between these guys. So you just turn around, you got to police the line. So it was painful. And so once we got through Turncout, TK, we start moving up into the mountains of Afghanistan, out of the desert and into the mountains. And it was tough. It was tough for a Humvee to get through, like a GMV. But now you were dealing with these giant jingle trucks who aren't designed for this, but they do it. I mean, so we're going over these mountains and through these hills and through these wadis, these dry creek beds, and we're making contact with the enemy. We're getting in gunfights. We had the Czech Special Operations Forces guys with us who are going to be co-located at Anaconda. So we were taking these guys too. And so, I mean, it was the Wild West. Like I said, there was gunfights happening. Of course, we're worried about, are these guys going to set us up at some point? Notifying their buddies that they're going to put an ambush in and stuff like that. It was, I'm glad to have done it, but I'm happy to never do it again. And so we get to Anaconda, and we're at the foothills, and we can see into this valley where Anaconda is. And we knew, well, let me back up. We get to this pass called Shakajoy Pass, and we know immediately, like, people will die today. Like, there's no question. Textbook ambush. You go through a canyon, high walls on each side. There's no question there's a mine in there somewhere, or probably a couple. And there's guys who are just going to peek over the top and just shoot and fish in a barrel. So guys start getting their helmets on, full kit. So it's it's going to be business time. And I was on the back with the 240 in a truck, and the combat controller guy was there with me, next to me. We had a guy named Mike on the 50 cal, and then another guy named Mike driving, and another guy inside the vehicle. And so everyone's like high alert. We're waiting because we can hear them on the radio. We intercept their messages saying, okay, they're coming up on the first ID. Like, is it ready? Yes, I put the battery in charge. So you're like, oh man, like, you start looking, right? You're like, dude, where's this thing? And before we went in, we had Afghan police with us. The team from Turncout, they had Afghan commandos. Their commander said to my commander, Travis, it's like, hey, I'm going to send you a truck, a Humvee of commandos, to help beef up the front, because we know the front's going to get hit. And Travis said, put him in front of Dano's truck. And I'm like, roger that. So you meet the Afghan guys, give them high fives, whatever, make sure they got ammo. And so they get in order of movement in front of me. That truck hit the IED, flipped that truck over, boom, right there on the spot. And so immediately you're like, okay. And then just a wall of gunfire. And I'm not kidding when I say that. I mean, the fire was so intense. But it was one of those moments of like, man, we've never done this before. And thankfully, my captain and the captain from the other team had coordinated, and they're like, yeah, just send us a truck. And the hand of God placed that truck in front of mine. Sadly, those guys died. But they saved the lives of me and my teammates, because that would have been us, without question. you know, and guys are on fire. They're trying to get out and they're pinned under this vehicle. Me and Mike on the 50 caliber, I'm full auto, like with an M4 just on the roof of the truck, just dumping mags because I see fire coming. I see tracers. I can't see the people, but I know where the tracers come from. So you're just like, you got to suppress fire. So you're just dumping mags. And then meanwhile, guys are rescuing these guys so we can get that truck out of the way and we got to push through this kill zone. That was probably was the worst, like the most intense gunfight I've ever been in. It was pretty wild. But that was one of like the highlights of tactically, like lessons learned. We learned so much from these missions, but we get through the kill zone and everybody's okay. Miracle. And so we establish a landing zone for a pickup for medevac. We go back down to the kill zone, and now we're trying to get about 200 of these jingle trucks through the kill zone. We're just like, keep going, and we're still taking fire. We got aircraft on station, you know, and
so did you guys just blow through the ambush, basically?
we had to.
Yeah.
And so it was either you go straight or you go left, like you're going to Anaconda. They knew where we were going. So we just turned left and we're just trying to get people through. We stayed the night there, got those guys medevaced, regrouped. Nobody got hurt except for those guys, which was a miracle. And man, it was unbelievable. AC 130 all night, just dropping rounds on people. You know, one of my buddies, JTAC qualified. He's like, hey, you got a group of guys moving in on you, moving in from the west, and it's nighttime. There's no reason for a group of men to be coming towards us. You know, so he's like, yeah, cleared hot. And you couldn't see it, and I'd always look. You know, you'd hear it. You know, I'm like, all right, where's it coming? Then you just hear it, the impact. You know, and then you'd hear the report from the air crew. Yep, he is neutralized. Like, roger that. And it's one of the best nights of sleep I had. You know, having them AC 130 all night, doing whatever. But that was, like I said, that was towards the end, and that was a pretty wild incident. And then we had another pretty significant gunfight going into Anaconda, this place called the Old Bazaar, like a really intense gunfight. Some things happen. Frag, you know, like it's been popularized, I guess, in the veteran community with a book that was released, which has been controversial within, I guess, the veteran community. You know, whether these things that this guy said happened or didn't happen. From a team perspective, and for me being there, I can say, like, yeah, there's a lot of this didn't happen, and I guess I'll just come out and say it, but yeah, it's the Tim Kennedy incident.
Mm-hmm.
He's a friend of mine. If he called me today and was like, hey, could you help me? I would, without question, help the guy, you know. But I've tried to reason with him too, like, hey, I think you should, you know, talk about this because a lot of this is not true. I'd say most of it's not true. But for some reason, and it goes back to the concept of stolen valor and what's right and what's not right. You know, guys came out on some podcasts and talked about it, you know, like this didn't happen, or this happened, but it was someone else. So for me, I just, you know, didn't want to address it. You know, like I would talk to the guys like, yeah, you know, yeah, this didn't happen, or I don't know, I didn't see that, but I don't think that happened. I think that was somebody else. But I think for me, what really hit home, and I talked about it only once, was the claims of him being wounded on the exfil when we were leaving Anaconda. We would do a hellacious gunfight. And I was the only one that got wounded on this trip. And so when we were leaving Anaconda, there's two ways. You go back the way you came, or you go back through this other route.
And you never want to go back the way you came.
especially this route.
Especially with what just went down. Yeah.
So we tried to do a little feint. Doesn't work. You know, like they had guys waiting and they had guys waiting over here. So we leave, and it was the most eerie kind of drive I think I've ever experienced because it was dead quiet. See a guy who's spotting up on this roof. And then the Afghan alleyways or roadways are typically pretty narrow. And so for a Humvee to go through, there's only a couple feet on each side. So we were very close to these mud walls. And these mud walls they've been there since the beginning of time. They're so thick. There was a break in the wall, and I'm on the back. In the 240 Bravo machine gun is useless because it's on a swing arm. You can't get the elevation over the walls. So I'm up there with my M4. You're kind of looking and just kind of scanning. And all of a sudden, bam, RPG went right in front of us. The guy just slipped the trigger and hit the wall. And so you're like, oh man, I thought the truck in front of us hit an ID. That's where I thought it happened because I'm looking kind of behind, kind of like scanning. And then again, they threw everything they had at us. Really intense. And the combat controller guy, Matt, he was right there next to me. And so he's working through close air support, like immediately. And we had 2 A-10s on station. And so I could hear, this is how urgent it was, the pilot saying, clear me, danger hot, danger close right now. Clear me, danger close right now. And so he was like, gives the ground force commander's initials, make sure that obviously they can see us, but you know, our location, enemy location, and enemy location is from where we are to the other side of this wall. Like it is that close.
Wow.
And so they're working through it, and guys are fighting and shooting guns and stuff. And I mean, it was just such an intense experience. And I remember Tim, he was in my truck, and all the actions on the passenger side of this, the passenger side of the vehicle. And something told me, like that God sense of like, get on the machine gun and swing around. It's kind of like the 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock position. And Tim's over there clearing a building by himself, you know, and I'm on the 240. I'm like, man, if dudes spill out and I got to mow some people down, like Tim's right there. So like, you got to make a very good decision of what you're going to do. And so I'm sitting there, he throws a grenade in this building, you know, backs out, explodes. And he looks up at me and I look up at him and I'm like, all right, man, like, good job. You know, like, cause everyone was so focused on this side, we didn't even look at this side. So he comes back and he's doing his thing and everyone's doing their thing. And then I hear the combat controller guy. He's like, hey, everybody get down, danger close, gun run. And so I just drop down. Mike drops down inside the truck and they're coming from behind us. And so I see that first A-10 come in, and I see the sparkle of the guns first, and then you hear that burp, like that burn. And so I'm watching this. I'm as small as I can be in the back of this truck, and it's an open truck. So I'm sitting there, but I'm like, man, I got to watch this because who gets to experience this? Like a danger close A-10 gun run. And so he's right on top of us. And we're feet away from where the bad guys are, literally feet away. And I'm watching him, and I follow him off target. You know, I'm like, phew, and there's rounds hitting everywhere, splashing. There's dirt going everywhere. And so he comes off station. Our combat controller gets on the radio. He's like, cleared hot. Second gun run comes in. And so Matt, the combat controller, is like, second gun run. And immediately I'm like, that was pretty close. I was like, I think I should get on top of Matt, because my buddy Jared, he was my junior engineer. So I was a senior, he was a junior. I was like, if I die, Jared can do my job. Like, no question. Do it better than me anyways. And so I said, I need to get on top of this dude as a human shield, because having a combat controller or a JTAC guy, it's a game changer in the battlefield.
Yeah, you don't want to lose him.
And so the only thing I could think of was lay on top of this guy and protect him. And so that's what I did. But of course, like, instead of like getting small, like I just got small, but I kept my head looking at the approach of this aircraft. Same thing, brilliantly executed. comes up, you see the guns sparkle, and then you hear that burp, and rounds are going everywhere. And there's still people kind of shooting and doing stuff. It's pretty wild. And then that's when I got hurt. You know, like I was on top of them, and then all of a sudden I just felt my hand just go, there's hot metal just going right through my hand. And it just immediately, I was like, man, that hurt. You know what I mean? But the aircraft had gone off station. You know, and I was like, man, like, and Matt was like, are you okay? I was like, dude, like something bit me, like the force, like I got shot, you know, and there's still dudes kind of like milling around, but it was pretty quiet after that second gun run. And I was like, yeah, man, I think I got shot, you know, like something happened. And I was so mad because my guitar playing hand. That's the first thing I thought of. I was like, man, I'll never play guitar again. One, I'm like, yes, I'm alive. Thank you. But yeah, and I had my mechanics gloves, you know, like those are my favorite, like shooting gloves. Ruined, you know, because now like my knuckle got blown out of my palm. Like it was, all things considered, an easy wound, I guess, to deal with. But it could have been a lot worse, you know. But like I said, that went straight through, like my knuckles blown out, and it just went everywhere else, you know. And I'm just like, oh man, this is not good. But the first thing I did was grab my pistol. So I was like, dude, there's still dudes running around here, you know. So I took my pistol and was like, you got to stay in the fight. You cry about this later, you know. We'll sort it out later. And so, yeah, we pushed through the kill zone. And they're working on a medevac, got me out of there. And yeah, I think in the book, like Tim talks about, like he was wounded and they were throwing body bags on the bird with me. You know, I was like, it was just me, you know, like I got on the bird, pararescue guys came, took me off, and had surgery in Turncout. I got one of their old, like a little abandoned schoolhouse or some sort, you know, like a field surgical team was there and knocked it out, you know. And but yeah, there's just so many things that I think claims that said that happened that weren't really true at all. And like I said, it didn't really bother me until I really thought about what a Purple Heart is. And for me, I'm like, yeah, it's just a thing for me. Like it's workplace injury or whatever. It's like, yeah, like I'm okay. Like put them in the box and you just kind of move on. But then I was like, as this scandal or this controversy was really accelerating, you know, I was like, man, I know 10 dudes that died in combat. And so when you die, you see it in movies, and it's true. You see a spouse or a mother, they get a folded American flag and a little box with a Purple Heart in it. And I was like, the Purple Heart it's bigger than me. It's bigger than the military. It's about the sacrifice that people have made, the ultimate sacrifice. And I was like, and I think this is true for all Purple Heart, combat wounded, Purple Heart, stolen valor people, that's a slap in the face to the people that made the ultimate sacrifice and their families. Like I said, at the end of the day, you got a bookshelf somewhere with a folded flag and a Purple Heart in a box somewhere. I was like, that's what's left of their child or their husband or whoever it is. And so for me, I was like, man, like I need to say something about this. And I went on an interview and a guy asked me, he had read the book. He's like, I know you're in this book because your name's in it. And he says here you have 3 Purple Hearts. And do you have 3 or 2? Because this book has been claimed to be vetted and verified. I was like, that's not true. I only have 2. And then people would take that and they started kind of attacking me. They're like, I think they're doing it to provoke me, of course, to talk about it. You know, and it's like, well, he says you have 3. You only have 2. So if this book had been verified and vetted, why were you trying to paint yourself to be more of a war hero than you really were by having extra medals and stuff? And I'm like, I didn't even know this book was written, first of all. You know what I mean? I had nothing to do with the process. And so that's what I was like, yeah. And people would attack me, you know, online, send me DMs on like Instagram, like, what's up? You know, dirtbag, stolen valor, you know. And I was just like, holy cow, this is
That sucks, dude.
I was like, I don't want to live like this, you know. And like for me, it's like, yeah, my service days are over. I had a great time. It's just a chapter in my life. Like I want to move on, you know. So this was all just coming up, and you know, I was like, yeah, this is not a good space for me, because I, you know, like in having the ability to reach out to Tim and saying, look, man, and I will say this, he is such a nice guy. Like we've done stuff together, he's done a lot of stuff for veterans. You know, he's had an amazing life story as a UFC fighter. All these things were just incredible. And then just to kind of elevate his military experience or embellish it, you know, I was like, man, you didn't need to do that. Everyone says that. You didn't need to do that. But because of that, like I said, I got roped into it. And I didn't unwittingly. And yeah, it got bad for me. And so I had to reach out to him. Like, look, man, you are a good guy. I was like, just come clean. Have the honor, like, you know, I know you have, like that warrior's code. And just come clean. And just say, yeah, you know what? Got a little carried away with this one. And I was like, I really do believe that people would say, thank you. Thank you for addressing this. I really do. Because the memes don't end. The comments don't end for this guy.
Yeah.
You know, all the Iran stuff and the down pilot stuff. Of course, people were sending me memes of like, you know, of him, like how he rescued this pilot and all these stuff. And I'm like, yeah, dude, this will never end. All I can do is encourage him. You know, I don't agree with obviously like what happened and the way he wrote his book. But all I can do is just encourage him. You know, I'll still be his friend. You know, like he texted me not too long ago. I'm just like, yeah, dude, just come out and do this. Just come clean. You know, like I said, the thing that really pushed me was what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong, and what the Purple Heart means. You know, so for him to claim, or you know, I guess there's clips of him saying that he was, you know, Bronze Star and Valor and Purple Heart stuff. I'm like, man, that's wrong.
Yeah, when you put it that way, it gives, I think, when you describe the meaning of the Purple Heart and how it is bigger than you as an individual or any individual who has received that award for the sacrifice that they made. When you put it that way, yeah, it's something that I think most people, including myself, I've never really understood the importance of the Purple Heart until I kind of heard you describe it that way. And the weight of it, you know?
It's a heavy one.
Yeah, it is.
And I never thought about it. Even the guys that I knew that were dead. You know, but this whole incident really, like I said, made me think about it. And I was like, man, I've been to Arlington, burying dudes, wherever, Fort Bragg. And it's like, that's what, at the end of the day, like their loved one went off to war, came back, and all you get is a flag and that little Purple Heart medal. You know, and I was like, man, this is way bigger than myself, way bigger than, you know, any individual that was lucky enough to survive their injuries, you know, because those people, they're gone. And like I said, a family member at the end of the day, that's all they have to remember those, you know, from their military service is a flag and a medal. So for me, I was like, yeah, I need to address this. Like I said, I don't want to be in any kind of spotlight. Never did, you know, so I was always happy, just like, I don't want to even talk about this. But like, it just really hit me. I was like, I think I need to talk about this, you know.
Well, what I hear you saying is that it's worth defending the honor of that award, of that medal. Like it's worth defending the honor that in the weight of that, not for yourself or for your own glory or platform or whatever, but as something that's bigger than you, you know? Because yeah, man, that was a messy situation. And to be honest with you, that was really bothering me when all that was going on with Tim and with some other veterans. like it was really bothering me because there was this, I don't know, there was this dynamic of, yeah, man, we as veterans, like we ought to hold each other accountable, um, within reason,
Sure.
right? I mean, you know, people's perspective on situations were different than yours, even if you were on the same mission doing the exact in the same truck. They saw things that you didn't see. I mean, hold each other accountable within reason. Like, but at the same time, it was so painful to kind of see that respectful accountability turn into a conversation that got really ugly on a lot of platforms. Um and not only for other veterans to see just the ugliness of it and like the bickering and the fighting beyond, I think at a point it went beyond reasonable accountability to like poking and the memes and all that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, okay, you're just taking this too far. And I think for other veterans that see that, guys and girls who are struggling with the things that they saw and did and just that part of their identity, like I think it was, man, it didn't feel good. It didn't make you feel good about being part of this community of warriors to some degree, right? And then I think also just the public seeing it, and specifically the elements, again, going above and beyond reasonable accountability, just the public seeing it and saying, well, who are these veterans? You know, like it seems like they can't ever stop arguing. It seems like they can't ever stop bickering and questioning each other and you know, talking bad about each other and all this stuff. Because when I got really, well, coming up, you know, veterans and especially special forces guys were held in this super high regard. I mean, even on up to the point that, you know, I was getting out of the military in 2019, still we were held by the public in this high regard as these men who live with honor and accountability. They live by a code, they live with integrity. And the community, in terms of how the public perceives the community, took a big hit just within the last couple of years. And I don't know, man, it was painful. It was painful to watch, but because there's that dynamic there. There has to be accountability because of what you just talked about with that medal, with the Purple Heart, where there has to be accountability there. But it's so hard to navigate it in a way without going just overboard with it, and the conversation becoming just ugly and disrespectful. You know what I mean?
And a lot of people are like, to your point, oh, you guys as veterans tear each other down. Special operations especially are just trying to dunk on each other and push each other down to kind of lift themselves up and all this stuff. And I've seen it, especially lately with influencers and all these other veteran personas. But for this, you know, I thought about it. You know, it's like, if anyone ever wanted to ask me about it, like, what's the right way to talk about it? Like I said, Tim can call me.
I think you navigated it very well, yeah.
You know, and I was like, look, I got a lot of love for the dude and his family. He's done a lot to help a lot of people, to include myself. I've tried to, I did say, hey, we should talk about this. You should, right? And just encourage him to come out right and just address it without verbal word salad stuff. Just be direct. You know, so, but I'm like, I think it's probably the honorable thing to do is just not tear down or bash anybody, or there's plenty of that's been happening, or it has happened in some of these podcasts and interviews where people are like, this guy is a scumbag and blah, blah, blah.
Oh, we get carried away. We can be very mean to each other.
But for me, I'm like, it's just not the type of person that I am anyways, but I don't think completely appropriate to handle it or address it in that way. But that's just not who I am. Like I said, if he never wants to talk to me again, then so be it. But, you know, it's one of those things. It's like, look, you do it gracefully, do it with some respect, you know, and with your point of view and my experience. Like I said, I was there, and that's what people are saying, like, well, how do you know? I was like, well, we rode in the same truck for a lot of that mission. I saw what he did. I will praise him for the good things he did on that trip, but also a need to address kind of the things that weren't so good, things that did not happen in, you know, using these fabricated incidents that, quite frankly, probably generated his status. And
that's the temptation, right? Like that, we must agree it is tempting to elaborate or embellish some of the stories, especially when you're in the public view, because there is going to be the bigger you can make this thing, the crazier you can make this thing, the more revenue it's going to generate.
Especially when it happened a long time ago, you know, and there's some things that I think people experience that you'll never forget, right? Like, I'll never forget October 8th, 2008, the day that this happened. On the back end of this mission, you know, for me getting wounded, you know, and then certain key dates in September when we're getting ambushed and all these other things that, you know, he'd made these claims on. Like, I'll never forget those moments because they were so vivid, you know, and so extreme. What it's like, you put guys in the same room, they'll tell you different things from their experience, their point of view of kind of what happened, and they may not line up all the time, but it's all just recollect. You know, like, my recollection is this. Like, to me, it's pretty clear, especially when you get other guys who are like, yeah, I think we're in the same boat here. And you get like one guy who's way outside of that, like, you know, so, man, it was a wild thing to kind of see unravel in our community.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think the Army will do anything about it, to be honest with you, because people I understand are contacting the Army and saying there needs to be some accountability. There needs to be some kind of UCMJ, some military punishment, an investigation, because of the definition of stolen valor, of just profiting off of, you know, these false claims. And the guy is very successful. You know, I've seen him talk. People forward me clips all the time. Yeah, the dude's out there telling some stories and probably making a lot of money off of those stories. Is that right? Is that the definition of stolen valor? Even though he was in the military, to benefit so greatly monetarily off of these false experiences.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I'm like,
it's a crazy thing to me anyways, that it's a weird thing that when I was growing up in the military, especially in special operations, it's a strange dynamic now that it's okay for guys to be doing that job and to have a public platform. It is a weird thing, man, because when I was in the teams, dude, if your mom took your picture and shared it on her Facebook page and one of your guys saw that,
absolutely,
you got talked to. I mean, you had a stern talking to, and that crap got taken down. So it's really strange for me. Like, I have a buddy here locally that's Special Forces, Green Beret. But he's in the National Guard. So these guys have, like, you know, they have their life at home, but then they're doing the job too. You know, they're deploying, they're doing the job, and you know, I see them. You know, they're trying to build a platform out here on the outside, but at the same time, they're deploying, they're training. It's a strange dynamic, man, that's even part of the culture now, that's allowed. I don't think it ought to be allowed.
I agree with you.
I think that, and man, I know it's tempting, man. I know it's tempting, but like, I think until you're done doing that job, it's better for you. It's better for the community. It's even better just for operational security, for you to just look, man, don't have a public platform. Like, this is your life, man. And if if you're in the National Guard or whatever, and you want to do things outside when you're at home, that's cool, do them. But it's of my opinion that you kind of forfeit the right to have a public platform at the same time. That's my opinion, personally. I think it would be better for the community. It's like the silent professionals. Like, that's what we were taught. Again, a line in the SEAL Creed is, I will not advertise the nature of my work. And for guys who are out, yes, tell your stories. Yes, share your experiences, because there's value there, man, for all kinds of people. And the war that you fought, the 20-year war, we have it right here. That's a book that my buddy, you would love that. But anyways, that's history. That's American history, man. We ought to capture these stories. But while you're in, do the job. That's my opinion.
And just be proud of the things that we were able to contribute to that.
Yeah.
That's it. And I see it all the time. I started distancing myself from veteran events because people want to show gratitude, especially in San Antonio, like Military City, USA. People love their veterans there. They want to throw parties and honor these veterans for their service. And then you would see people who are attached to like a SEAL team, or they're attached to an SF unit. And these people don't know any better. And they'd be like, oh, I was in 3rd Special Forces Group. And people are like, whoa, that's amazing. But I'm like, you were the supply guy. You were a part of the regiment, in support of the regiment. Like, just say that. And I would see it all the time. And I'll just be like, look, no, just be proud of what you did.
Yeah.
You served where many people did not, and they won't. Quit trying to church it up and say, oh, I was in 3rd Special Forces, because immediately people, or whatever unit, I keep going back to 3rd because one guy was notorious for that. Well, I was in 3rd Group, I was in 3rd Special Forces. So people assumed that he was a Green Beret. And I would just be like, he was the supply guy. Like, he'd be like, why would you do that? I'm like, just be truthful to these people, because you're misleading these people. Because they hear that and they're like, oh, I want to do this for you, and I want to take you out and honor you. You're in Special Forces. I'm like, that's not right. And again, it's like, I know a lot of guys who were Special Forces who died for the regiment. And here you are kind of comparing yourself to these same people, these same caliber of men. And I was like, that's not right to me. So just tell people outright what you did. There's nothing wrong with it.
At the end of the day, when you witness stuff like that, it's actually sad to me. It's like, it's sad, because you ought to, if you served, I don't care if you were a cook in the Navy, like, you ought to be proud of your service, man, because the reality is, no matter how much combat you saw, or how much combat you didn't see, or what your job was, you wrote a check to the U.S. government and to the people of this country that was payable to a price that included up to the cost of your life, like your very life. You wrote this blank check to the people of this country that said, I'm going to go, and yeah, I might just want to be a cook because I like cooking, but I'm liable to die doing this. Very much more liable to die doing this, deployed overseas somewhere, in whatever circumstance. There's 1,000 different ways it could happen. Sure. Then I would be likely to die at my house, cutting grass for a living. Like, what you did as a veteran, no matter what your service was, you went above and beyond what your country asks of you, because the absolute minimum is just be a productive member of society, man. Just, work, be active in your community, be be a good moral person, stand up for what's right, right? You went above and beyond all of that. And not only did you put your life at risk, no matter what you did, you were forced to spend time away from your family. That's the biggest sacrifice.
Absolutely.
To be honest with you. I mean, that's the biggest sacrifice, is not being able to do anything you wanted to do ever. Because even if you had leave, if there was something else to do, they're not going to approve your leave. You did whatever the job required you to do every single day of your service.
Especially during the GWAT.
Yeah.
That was 20 years.
That is sacrifice, man. Like, be proud of that, dude.
And it goes back to the accountability thing. Like, you want to hold these people accountable, you should, versus trying to tear them down. Like, to me, like addressing, like calling that guy out, it's like, look, just tell people. That to me,
you're trying to mentor him.
100%. Like I said, and I did a lot of volunteer stuff for veterans across Texas. And the more I kept running into these type of people, the more it turned me off. And so that's why I started distancing myself from veteran organizations. And people were like, hey, you want to go, hunt, or you want to go do this? I tell them no. Like, I appreciate it, but I don't want to be around these people, because it was just left a bad taste in my mouth. And then I would focus my volunteer efforts like with kids with disabilities, people with illnesses, because I was like, I want to help these people. But here, when I go serve and give my time and whatever is required to volunteer with these folks, I don't have to hear people trying to lie to the people to make themselves seem better.
Mm.
And I was like, this is what I should do. And that's what I've been doing for many years, these last few years, working with kids with disabilities, kids with terminal illness, young adults, same thing, wheelchair, because it's a different perspective on life too. Like, the first time I worked with these kids, I was like, man, this is very eye-opening to me. So you get the satisfaction of serving without wanting anything, without asking for anything. So you get that, it makes you feel good, but without the drama.
Yeah.
Yeah. The veteran drama.
Man, and it doesn't have to be that way. And I think that can change. Like, that part of the veteran community and that part of the culture can change, but it changes through us sitting down and having respectful conversations like this. Like,
and it's uncomfortable for me. Like when you ask me, tell me, I was like, oh man, do I say something? I was like, I should say something, because like I said, like that thing that was been beating me down, like, it's not about you, dummy. It's about those people in Arlington.
Yeah.
It's about those people in small town USA that are no longer with us, whose parents, like I said, or their spouse or their kids, they have a flag and a medal. That's what's left of their parent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm like, yeah, like, talk about it, I guess. You know what I mean? Without, like I said, and I think the big thing is without dumping on somebody, because it's very easy to do. You can I can sit here and be like, this guy was a scumbag and this guy was whatever. But I'm like, at the end of the day, is that helpful? Does it make going bigger than ourselves? Does that make the veteran community look bad? Another example of like, that's all these guys do is just dump on each other, and it's crazy. So
no, you provided a great example for all of us that we ought to take notice. Anybody who's happens to watch this that might have commentary on the stuff we talked about, Daniel gave us a great example of how to navigate these conversations that I think we should all take notice of. I've taken notice of it because I have a platform that I get to speak on, and I don't always navigate things in a respectful manner. And it's something I learned from you today, is how to do that. So thank you for that gift.
Oh.
You're full of gifts, man. I want to ask you, just switching gears, from a broad perspective, now looking back on Afghanistan and just everything, I mean, you gave a lot of yourself there. I mean, it's just so much sacrifice and so much commitment and so much work that you put into that place. I am interested in just a few kind of weird questions. Now looking back on it, how do you perceive the enemy that you were fighting there? Is there any respect for them? Were they good fighters? Looking back on it, is it any different in your mind?
It's a good question. I mean, I think you have to have respect for an enemy force, because if you go in there like as a combatant wise, like, because if you go in there, all these guys are just, they run around in pajamas all day, they wear flip flops, like, we're gonna go here and light these guys up. When you start, if you have that mentality, underestimating their capabilities, they're very clever people. They've been fighting since the beginning of their existence. Like, if you go in there with no respect for who they are and kind of what they believe and how they think, that's a problem. And so leading up to Afghanistan, I got to read books, history books, other side of the mountain, bear went over the mountain, Russian engagements.
Yep.
And so it's like you learn from these experiences, because guess what? They're using the same ambush sites. They're using the same techniques. Nothing has changed. And then when they fought the British, centuries, 1800s, all these things, it's the same thing. They sit on this mountaintop because they know this is what they're going to do, and they're going to shoot people. And that's what they've been doing. So I think to not have the respect for how they operate and I guess what they believe in, like, to me, like, I think anyone would be doing themselves and their teammates an injustice.
Mm-hmm.
Ideologically, obviously, like, they're their own hardcore Islamists, right? Like, they have their own way of what they believe is right. They're willing to die for it. You know, that's another way to, I mean, that's a whole nother thing you got to unpack. Like, when they're sending kids with explosives on themselves to blow up infidels, like, that says something about them as people, or maybe less than people.
Yeah.
Because that's brutal. But all in the name of their, what they believe in. And that's what they're willing to do, to show people that they're right, and they will die for it. You know, it's a complex thing.
It is.
I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you did. You did. Totally, man. Looking back on Afghanistan, you know, the narrative now, everything's changing now. We're in a weird time. And there is a large part of the veteran community that looks back on Afghanistan and Iraq both, and they say, that was a waste. We should have never been there. I mean, that's openly, that narrative's openly talked about now and pushed on some of the biggest platforms way bigger than mine. And I just, what was accomplished there? You spent so much time there. I want to get your opinion, your take
question on that. Was it worth it? At times I'm like, I don't, there's times, especially being an SF guy, working at a different level with like a foreign internal defense, unconventional warfare approach, working with villages to liberate them from oppression, like the Special Forces motto. Did we do that in a lot of places? Yes. Were we able to create freedom? At the time, I think everything's been lost with the withdrawal. It just was for nothing, because we just gave it back to them. But at the time, I spent about 2 years in Afghanistan. Total is like, to see people experience freedom. Taliban are gone. We're teaching them how to defend themselves, and it worked in some places. And we were there to experience it and see it. So to give people hope, like, okay, this is possible, but it's going to come at a cost. And what cost are you willing to pay? I'm here as a foreigner, willing to die to help you guys get rid of these people so you can flourish and live free. That in itself was rewarding to see that actually happening in small pockets. But, to give people the ability to go to school, something that our kids get to do every day, or Americans get to do every day. Women go become educated, there it's not a thing. But there's a lot of people that want that. So to be able to help provide that for them and get rid of like the Taliban guys, because they're not good people. They're not good people at all. That was rewarding. But then I think the U.S. is not very good at playing the long game. We look at what's happening like in Iran with the Kurds, especially in history, like just abandoning people, our allies and stuff. Man, it's not a good look for the U.S. at all. And so to leave the Afghans after many people have died, many people were severely hurt, wounded, it's kind of like, what was it all for? We gave them everything that belonged to us: weapons, vehicles, helicopters, night vision, guns. We're just like, yeah, we had a good time here for 20 years and we're going to roll out and leave you all this stuff. And then what did they do? They just went right back in. It's classic insurgency. They have the time. That's all they know it too. Because especially you look at the U.S. military's performance when it comes to long-scale combat operations, it's just like Vietnam. And it's like, okay, we'll roll out, and then those insurgents, they just come right back and just take over. They're like, we knew this was going to happen, and they just do what they do. So that was a hard one to swallow, to see it unraveling. Because I was like, man, what was it? Was it worth it? What was this all for, this 20 years? I'm like, man, and that was a hard pill for people to swallow, to include myself.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, if this is the way it was going to end up, it wasn't worth it. Did we do some great work over there? Sure, but at the end of the day, once the pullout was done, all that work was for nothing, because they just went and just unraveled everything we did at the cost of lives of our, not only the U.S., but the coalition, the lives they paid too. It's like a huge slap in the face to everyone that sacrificed. That's the way I see it.
Yeah. Is there resentment
for me
from me? For yeah, like man, like I said, you have a unique perspective on this because you gave so much of yourself there, along with other military members. And like, I'm just interested: is there a residing resentment toward U.S. government, the leadership of the country? Not really. How do you move on? How do you move on from it? Like, how does it not still keep you up at night? How is it not something that you still?
Well, for me, it's easy. Well, I'm not a big government fan. You know what I mean? Like, it's like a politician. They're going to tell you one thing and they're not going to do what they tell you. It's like nothing new. I mean, you see it all the time. And I saw it when I was in Afghanistan when Obama took office, shut us down. So 2 of my tours, we were co-located with SEAL Team 6 in CIA, like their ground branch guys. And then at the far end of the compound was CANSOF, the Canadian, like their tier 1 operators. So they shut us down. They're like, no nighttime ops, just daytime, whatever. And we're even for the SEAL Team 6 guys, because we'd go talk to them, and we're like, what are we even doing here? Basically, they just want us to drive around and to get shot at or we get blown up, and this is 2008, I think. And it's kind of like, for me, I was like, okay, there's a shift here, like where I'm starting to live it, not only see it, but I'm living through it. And then hearing what kind of the command wants us to do and how they want us to do it, but not getting the full support. I was like, what are we doing here? Guys are just going to die. That's it. That's
Yeah.
all we're doing here. And so I've always been skeptical, you know, or like really had to analyze like risk, right? Okay, like if we're going to do this and knowing like the hazards of our profession, right? We knew like there's some high risks in this job. If you're not willing to accept those risks, then you should probably just get out and go back to your home or whatever and start a new life. But I liked it. I liked what I was doing.
You also expect to be able to leverage every advantage.
Of course.
When you're doing the job. And I couldn't imagine being in your shoes when that happened. Like, I was in training when that order came down from Obama, and I remember it was a big conversation around you guys weren't able to operate at night and this and that. And I mean, I just remember thinking that and thinking, how are you going to ask these men to do this job, but literally take away one of their greatest advantages, which is the ability to operate at night? I mean, 3/4 of our training is operating at night, learning how to do that because it's the greatest advantage that we had. How are you going to take that away from them and still expect them to be in that conflict and to be effective in that conflict and to stay as safe as possible? Like, I can't imagine being deployed when that came down, like how much resentment there would have been, especially, I guess, in young guys. You were maybe more mature at the time and able to navigate it better, but I couldn't imagine that, dude.
Yeah, and of course the team is like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
You know, we'd go work with, you know, the 6 guys. Like, hey, what are you guys doing? Like, how are you going to do this? Or like, yeah, like we can't go to Kandahar City. So the CanSoft guys, the Canadians, they still had full reign to do whatever they wanted. So they were going out and just hitting targets in the city, wherever else. And then meanwhile, you had us. We're just like, I guess we just drive around and wait to get blown up. You know, wait to get ambushed. We're like, this kind of sucks.
Well, yeah, I mean, I asked you, how do you move on from that, or how do you get on? You said it's easy for me. Well, how is it? How is that?
Is it worth letting that weigh on you all the time and causing you like mental distress or even physical distress? Because it does. People are like, man, like they become disgruntled, right? Causes them to act irrational maybe or drink.
Yeah.
You know, but it's at the end of the day, I'm like, I volunteered as a service member to serve the Constitution under any condition, and I'm okay with that. You know, what is it? Support and defend the Constitution, obey the officers, you know, the orders the officers appointed over us. You know, I'm like, that's what I signed up to do. You know, like whatever the direction they want to lead us, like I have to, that's my job is to support that. If I didn't like it, then it's like, okay, and then you get out, you know, when your time is done. But yeah, I've seen people, they become disgruntled. They turn to substance abuse, you know, and they become angry. And I had a guy ask me one time, just hanging out. He's like, if that guy that put the IED there or that commander that ordered this, like across from you, what would you do? Like today, what would you do? I was like, just forgive him, man. I was like, what good? I got a story about this for you. I was like, what good would it do for me to harbor that hate inside my heart and like cause me physical distress of like, man. And I'll tell you where I learned this from, like where I came to this crossroads and like made this decision just to be like, let it go. You have to let it go. Like, there's nothing you can do about it now. You know what I mean? What's done is done. When I got to San Antonio, after I got blown up, I had an unknown infection, and that's what took most of my leg. It took, like I said, initially my foot was gone. So they would come and they'd say, we're trying. They're just pumping stuff in my IV to hopefully it would kill that infection. And they'd be like, we got to operate. We got to amputate. I'm like, okay, what am I going to say? You know, I'm like, okay, just, I'm here for the ride. So they'd operate and amputate. It was just nonstop, like 20 something times of just like them trying to get ahead of it before it spread. And I was on a lot of drugs. And this one time where I wasn't sleeping. It was nighttime, just lonely. Mind is just kind of, only thing I could think about was getting back to Afghanistan. I wanted to go back. And so I had a room in my window, a window in my room I could look out, and at nighttime I could see the moon pass, and I would wait for that moon to kind of come by, and I would, for 3 days I did this. I would wait till the moon would pass, and I would cry out to like internally, like I would just wish I would will it. I would ask for the devil to show up. I was like, show up right now, and I will give you everything, my soul, everything you want. Get me better. Take me back to Afghanistan with the boys, and let me kill this guy. And I was like, that's what I would do at night for 3 days, 3 nights in a row. And then like in my mind, I thought it would be like a swaggering gentleman with a contract you see in a movie, like sign this and we can make your wildest dreams come true. That's all it takes, That's what I was kind of hoping for, to be honest with you. But man, that hatred lived inside of me, and it was crushing me. And on that the morning after that third night, I was like, dude, you can't live like this. I had to come to the realization, like, you cannot live like this, man. Like, it'll do nothing but create problems for you. And so I was like, I can't do this no more. Like, when it comes to like forgiveness and the ability to kind of move on, I was like, from this day forward, and it can be a hard thing for people. Forgiveness is very hard. Probably the 2 hardest words in the English language is I'm sorry. And I realized, I was like, I can't live like this, man, because it'll just eat at you and it'll take you down a dark path. And it did. Like I said, those 3 days, those 3 nights, man, I was going dark. And that wasn't like me, but I was like, but I wanted it so bad. And so that's how I think, what good is it going to do if I sit here and complain about the government's actions, about this or that, or the pullout, or like I said, or the guy that was, if he was here with us doing this interview, I'd be like, still mad at you, but we got to move on, man. Like, I don't have the energy. I'm not going to waste the energy on do this, but it's not easy. And that's how I look at it, because everyone comes at the crossroads at some point and they have to make a decision. It's the decision that person makes it may not always be the right decision at the time too. You got to realize that as well. You think you're doing the right thing, and you come to the crossroads again. You're like, man, I went right when I should have went left, and here's the path forward. And that's simple as that for me, because I realized, man, these are heavy decisions, and at the end of the day, what good is it for me to focus my energy on these problems? I have other things to worry about, like my family and those kind of things. So for me, I don't know what good is it at the end of the day.
That's sound wisdom, man. Yeah, that's the truth, right? The truth isn't always the easiest path, but it's sound wisdom, man, for a lot of people to hear, even people that aren't warriors, even people that are going through things that don't pertain to combat, or it's sound wisdom for every single person listening to the podcast.
I don't know. I hope so.
I love it, man. Well, Daniel, I want to get into what you're doing now, man. What you're most passionate about now. You got to tell me about the rodeo company, the bulls. Where did that come from, man?
Well, I think it goes back to, like, people will tell me. So when my journey from Kandahar to Bagram, like after I lost my leg, couldn't see, I was a complete wreck. So getting back to the States. So I got to San Antonio December 4th of 12. So there was a few days in between from the point of injury to getting, into a proper military treatment facility. I remember being in Germany, and the guy was like, one of the surgeons, like, "Hey, this isn't looking really good." I was like, "Just tell me, shoot me straight, doc. That's what I need to hear." He's like, "You'll never see again. You'll probably never walk again." And he's like, "And you may die."
Good night.
And I was like, man, this guy wasn't playing, like, which I appreciated. And I was like, okay, like, no problem. And so that kept me, I think, in a state of mind of like fight. I'm like, okay, this guy thinks I'm gonna die. Like, I'm gonna show him, right? And then getting to San Antonio, they're like, "Your right leg is hammered." They're like, "We should just cut it off." And I was like, "Don't you dare." I was like, "I'm going to show you that I'm capable. Just give me a chance. It's the only thing I asked for. Give me a chance." And so having that mentality of like, at least let me try, like, that for me was, okay, that was like the baseline of like my new stubbornness. And that from that moment, because I didn't know anything about amputations or adaptive living, except for what you see like Paralympic stuff. So I knew people could run and do things with prosthetics and things. Like, life's not over. It changes. And so for me, when people, like, a simple statement, is, "You'll never see again. You'll never walk again. Or we cut your leg off, and you probably won't make it across the ocean." That was like challenges. I was like, okay, I'll show you. You know what I mean? So, and when I got to the States, I think it was, what's the Dover?
Yeah.
So I got to Dover, and the crew was pissing and moaning a little bit because I was supposed to go to Walter Reed. I was like, "No, go to San Antonio. I need to go to San Antonio. Like, something's telling me to go to San Antonio for my treatment." So they swapped out an air crew, and I'm there with an Air Force combat assistance team, like on a pizza rack, not, and I could start to see. So I remember I had like a big beard. I was dirty. I kind of looked like an Arab, I had long black hair. So people were like, "Who is this terrorist they're bringing to like Guantanamo Bay or something?" But, so passenger getting off, and new air crew is getting ready to take me from there to San Antonio. And this guy shows up. It's nighttime. And so the ramp is down. I see this guy walking up. And so I'm like, I'm starting to regain my sight. So this is like the first thing. I'm like, things are going my way, right? So I see this guy, and he's in utilities or BDUs. And like the first thing I know is like, hey, this dude's a tall guy. He's in shape. And as he's getting closer, I'm like, his hair is spectacular. I was like, I bet he's a Navy SEAL.
Oh, I could have told you.
The hair.
Yeah.
The hair is what clued me in. And no kidding, it was a Navy SEAL.
If it wouldn't have been nighttime, he would have had a cool pair of sunglasses on too.
He was wearing sunglasses.
Okay.
So like I see, like he gets close to me and I see his trident, the U.S. Navy, the trident. And he's like, "I heard you were coming." He's like, "I had to stay." He's like, "I don't have anything to give you other than this gift card." He's like, "I know you don't have anything." And I was like, "Yes, sir." I don't even know what rank he was. It didn't matter. But I was like, he sat with me for a few moments. And I was like, okay, I can see I'm starting to get support from random people. I was like, okay, this is a good sign. Like, it's all positive. But that's where I think the mentality was just getting forged of like, never quit, right? Like, no matter how bad things get, there's always a way forward. And it's going to take people to help you. Like that random Navy SEAL guy. I still got the gift card. It's in a blue bag that I left Kandahar with. Don't know who he was, what his job was there. But he's like, I heard you were coming. I had to see you. He's like, "I don't have anything other than this." He's like, "I hope this helps you." And like, more than anything is that time he spent with me, like my first interaction with another person outside of like my two docs. Like, man, it inspired, like it just made me feel good. Like I was like, okay, things are going my way. This is a good sign. But I think it's showing people when they tell you can't do this. And then you're like, okay, because you have people who say accept that and they just let it crush them, or they just I can't do this because someone said I can't. And they just go down like depression and all these other things. They look for pills or something to kind of like just keep them medicated or something.
They become the
out
living
of reality.
dead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for me, I was like, I gotta show people, you know, and plus I want to do it. I was like, I have to learn my new normal. So like, I'm going to go walk around. I'm going to go try to do things, which just led to more ridiculous adventures. Like I was talking to my buddy Garrett. He's like, what do you want to do, man? I was like, well, I grew up in a little rodeo high school. We had FFA and rodeo and stuff. And I was like, bull riding's my favorite rodeo. And I was like, wouldn't mind getting on a bull. He's like, got you. Show up. There's some dudes there. Matter of fact, SEAL Team 6 cowboy, a guy named Clint LaRue, he was there. He does a lot of stuff for veterans too. And he was there. He was like, all right, man, like, here's how you get on and all this stuff. And I fell in love with it. And the guy told me, he's like, you're either going to hate this or you're going to love this. He's like, we're about to find out. Get in the chute, you know, come flying off this animal, like immediately, you know, and I was like, catch that thing and let's do it again. It was so fun. You know, and I've had a couple rides since then, and hopefully, you know, it's one of the things I wanted to get back into because it's so much fun. Like, it is amazing. And the guy was right, because people either hate it or they love it. So I'm looking forward to doing something like that. But it's like the challenges of just like never stopping, right? Because it's so easy to give up. It's very easy to watch people do things and tell yourself like, oh, I'll never be able to do that. Like, and that's what I think was so attractive to the ROP. I didn't know who you were or 3 of 7 until Amy from Salty Britches, who so that's the connection. Like, I volunteer for Amy because her product changed my life significantly, because I guess the mechanics of walking as an amputee can be difficult because of chafing and sweating, you know, because over my stump is a liner. And then once I'm in my liner, I go into the socket, and that's how you walk around. So that's how it connects to your body. And so just doing stuff like that, sweat will cause that liner to slide. And then now you're on skin on like hard rubber and carbon fiber, which causes skin breakdown and all that stuff. And so I would gut through that stuff and it just tear up my skin. I'd be in a wheelchair for a couple of days, but I was like, I can't keep living like this. And so someone gave me a tube of Salty Britches. I was like, I'll try it. And put it on, and I have a little ranch, and I have bees. I keep bees. And so I was honey harvesting time, and I was like, well, let me move these boxes of honey and bees. And it's Texas summer, so it was hot. And so sweating wasn't an issue and all this stuff. I'm like, this stuff's pretty good. And then I just was increasing my physical activity because I was training for a 75-mile rock. And so I just wrote her a comment. It's like, this stuff, I'm a random amputee from the internet. Love this stuff. It changed my life. And she's like, can you call me? You know, so, and she's a fabulous woman and her family's great. And so getting to know her and going to see these ultra athletes, these endurance athletes, really inspired me to be better. And so I see, and she's like, oh, you got to meet this guy named Chad, you know, and this is what he's doing, you know, and I'm like, sounds cool. And so, of course, the phone is always listening. I start seeing my YouTube feed, Rite of Passage. I'm like, oh, it's the guy, you know? And so I watched one of the Rite of Passage videos, and immediately I was hooked. I was like, I need to do this. And I forwarded the video to Amy on a text message. I said, and this is the exact quote of it. I said, God willing, I will do this. And I sent it to her, and she's like, okay, you know, and I applied. And it's, as an amputee, especially in above the knee, it's unheard of for people to want to do these types of things. And so, but that's what's so appealing, because it's a challenge. You know, I was like, man, I want to train with this guy. I want to train with this team. Because there's value, you know, like the leadership that you provide us, the experience you share with us, and then sharing that, getting to know your teammates who you don't know until you show up. and you just learn from each other, and obviously the physical part of it. Because I was like, I don't know any other amputee who's done something like this. Not to say that there's none that have, but I was like, man, I'm gonna try. And when I got the notice, like a reply or else kind of thing, and I was like, yes. And I'm horrible email checker, so like I saw that and I was like, this is exciting. So I called Amy, and man, it's all about the challenge of pushing the limits of what people think is or isn't possible. And it starts with like myself. Like, can I do this? I don't know. There's only one way to find out. And then by doing these things, and people share these experiences, it brings hope, to an inspiration to people, because they're like, man, my leg is gone. My life is over. I mean, limb loss is a serious issue.
Of course, yeah.
But to me, I'm like, whatever. That's how it was for me. I'm like, I'm alive. The rest I'll figure it out. But you get people who lose a limb, they're devastated. And I can't wrap my brain around. I get it, because like being an amputee sucks, but it's not the end of the world. Like, do you need 4 limbs to live a productive, meaningful life? No, not at all. But you have to make that mental switch to accept, right? Like, that acceptance is so important. But that's why, like, bull riding and surfing and rucking, or rite of passage challenge, these things to me, I'm like, yeah, like I need to do this to show myself. Like we talked about earlier, like you got to keep that edge sharp a little bit, because or you die in the chair, right? I've heard that before.
Yeah.
Don't die in the chair. So it's like, how do you not die in the chair? You get out and you accept challenges and you push yourself. And that's like it's a small, big first step. So
yeah, you try new things and try new things that you don't know, or you're not for sure that you're even going to be able to do. I mean, that is how you get sharp. Like the failures in a unique way will sharpen you more than the successes that you have. I did a 1,000-mile kayaking race with a friend of mine last summer on the Yukon River, and he's paralyzed from the waist down. David Charbonnet, we served in the SEAL teams together. He still has his legs, but he contemplates just having his legs cut off because they're just like dead weight to him. He gets so frustrated with it. And we made it a little over 500 miles down the Yukon River before he developed a pressure wound on his butt, which is because of he's paralyzed. It's a big deal if that skin's broken, because the circulation issues. It becomes an infection, and he can't be in his wheelchair, and he has to lay on his stomach for months at a time until this thing hopefully heals. And we pulled out just over 500 miles, but it's like that's what he did. It's similar to what you do. It's like, hey, can my body physically do this? I don't know. Let's go see. Let's try it, man. And it's so awesome, man, because the unique thing about you guys who have these significant injuries, who things are more difficult for you than they are for me, just flat out, like they're harder for you than they are for me. It's really cool, man, because you guys, you just be yourself, and you do the same hard things that other people are doing, but it has so much more impact. And I know you don't do them for those reasons, and my friend David Charbonnet doesn't do them for those reasons. You're doing it because that's what you're passionate about, but it's like on the ROP course, dude. It was, for me, I mean, there were 20 members of that team. But I watched you so much because you were doing the same things that they were doing, but it was visibly harder for you than it was for them. And I remember when one of the teammates, young guy, tried to quit. And I'm like, how can you even think about stopping regardless of how bad this hurts, because it does hurt. I've done the rite of passage 8 or 10 times. It hurts every time. How can you think about quitting when Daniel, you're literally walking in the front of this formation with Daniel, and he's missing a limb and his other leg's tore up, and I'm watching you go through this, man, and you're having to use your entire body to move. Like you're utilizing your entire body to move up these mountains. And I remember I had a conversation with you on the road to nowhere where we said we were, I think it was right there somewhere around the road to nowhere. Daggone it, I shouldn't say that on the podcast. We need
edit that out.
We need to edit that out. But
road to nowhere.
I was like, yeah, just put in like a beep. I remember talking to you because your prosthetic was malfunctioning. The little piston was overheating. And I was like, hey, dude, no disrespect to you, because I know you wouldn't want me to tell you this, but I'm not going to not let you finish this mission because of a gear malfunction. And so if you need to like step off to the side and cool that thing down and hang out for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, we'll catch you back up, man. Like, it's not a big deal. And you looked at me and you said, no, man, sorry. I'm going to keep the same standard as everybody else, or I'm not going to be here. I was like, okay, I'm dealing with somebody right now that ain't on the level. I'm not on that level yet, man. Like, I'm dealing with somebody now that's different, and not different again because you have some crazy gift that no one else has, but just you're different because of your life experience, man. Like, it's molded you into this unique, awesome person that's so full of just value and inspiration. And I know you hate me right now for saying all this good stuff about you, but nonetheless,
but it's true.
man.
It's like, I remember that conversation. I was like, I'm here to train with you, like train under you and meet the 307 standard, you know? And I was like, it's not fair, at least in my mind, it's not fair for me to get special treatment or consideration. I volunteered to be here knowing I only knew a little bit from what you could see on YouTube, these videos. I was like, you just show up, you walk until it's done. You know what I mean? It's like simple in theory, but there's challenges. That's for sure. But for me to ask or even consider something outside of what the standard is for that course, for that training session, it's like, there's no question that the answer is no.
Yeah.
Now, if I don't make the standard, you're like, dude, sorry, man, like, you got to go. I wouldn't hold it against you. You know, I'd be like, roger that. You know what I mean? No, I didn't meet the standard. You learn, and man, I had a great time, and you just go back. That's it. But yeah, shout out to Team 16. You know, Harrison, the young guy, for just getting it done. There's so many guys. Leadville Tom, that dude was like right on me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Alan, squad leaders. I mean, it was a great experience. I didn't know what to expect. And of course, I don't know how you deal with it, but I watched it and people were sending it to me. And we watched it last night. As a matter of fact, at our Airbnb. And I couldn't help myself. I started reading the comments. You know, I'm like, don't read the comments. And of course, people are like, this is a grown man alpha boot camp getting yelled at and all this stuff. But there's also comments of like, this was really cool. Like, I want to do this. How do you deal with that as like a creator, a content creator, you know, a leader in these physical and endurance events, knowing that there's going to be haters in the comments? Does that affect you?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would be lying if I said it doesn't affect me in some way, because I'm so, like, I've put my entire life's work and everything that I know into creating that course specifically, but even anything else that we do here at 307 Project. It's the culmination of my life's work and the knowledge I've been blessed with, which is incomplete knowledge, by the way. It's just what I have at this point in time. So I'm passionate about those courses and those experiences, and I've seen the impact that simple mission has made on literally hundreds of people, man. And so I would lie if I didn't say that, it doesn't sting a little bit, and I think it always will. But that's actually a good thing, because if it didn't sting, then you know what that would tell me? That I'm not really passionate about what I'm doing. That I'm not. If it didn't sting, then that would just tell me that I'm not really concerned with this thing that I'm doing with my time, my life, and my experiences. It really doesn't mean that much to me. Like, if all it meant to me was $1, money, then those comments wouldn't sting. But it stings because I am passionate about it, because I do care about it, because I want to provide the best experience that I and my team can possibly provide to people who want to grow and get better. But at the same time, I have to acknowledge that the reality of comments like that, that is sad for those people, because the reason you make a comment like that is because something about that challenged you. Something about that rubbed you the wrong way, and you have not learned as a man how to react to something that challenges you. Something that deep down inside you think, man, that would be really uncomfortable for me, not only just to walk that far, but to have another grown man holding me to this high standard of accountability. Because when I yell at students, I mean it. I'm not doing it as a performance. Like when we were on top of that mountain late in the night, and you were changing out your sleeve, I think, and there were a couple of guys just standing around, and because of their lack of training, they didn't understand. You should never find yourself in a position when you're on mission with nothing to do. If you're not doing anything, that makes me feel uncomfortable. It probably does you too. And they didn't understand that. And you were down there working through the process that you had to work through, and these guys were just standing here and they didn't see you. I want them to learn that isn't right. That is not how you operate. So when I jump on those dudes, one is because I love them and I want them to grow. And it's not a performance, because it actually bothers me. It bothers me that you don't know that yet. And you're a 50-year-old man. No one ever taught you that. You've never taken notice of that. Whatever the thing is, whatever the deficiency is. You know what I mean? And so people think that would make me really uncomfortable for another grown man to be in my face, yelling at me for something that I did wrong. I'm like, I understand why that would make you uncomfortable, but you need to run toward that. Like, that's the kind of dudes I want around me. Like, straight up, dude, if we're out on mission together and I screw up, you need to make me feel bad about it, because that's what challenges me, I
remember, like, when I saw that happen, I kind of felt bad. I was like, man, because I remember I was like trying to help you try to help people. So I'm like pouring water, doing whatever to help. And I'm like, okay, I need to take care of myself. And then just getting lit up. You're like,
yeah.
Hey. And I was
but
like,
you provided that lesson for them. I mean, if you wouldn't have been there, I wouldn't have had the opportunity more than likely to teach those few guys that thing. And I hope it stuck with them. That's the beautiful thing about the team environment. And I think the ROP course to me is the closest that we can get as warriors to feeling connected to a team again that's on a mission with a clear objective, in the midst of difficult circumstances. And just, you know how it was in your ODA team. You guys become this single organism, right? Definitely to a higher level than we experience at the ROP team. But the ROP, for me, is just the closest we can get to that. And that's my favorite part about the whole mission.
it was
really
fun.
is.
Like I said, there was something about it when I first saw the clip, like the video, and I clicked on it, I was like hooked. I was like, man, there's so many great things that you can take away from it. Obviously, me, like the physical challenge, the mental, because there was times I was like, this leg, the Carnita's leg, was just like, it was a mess. I have foot drop, circulation issues.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, man, this freaking sucks. You know what I mean? But I was like, it's gonna end. But
It impacted me, man, just seeing you do it.
but it was like I said, those were my words. I could pull up my text. God willing, I'm going to do this.
That's awesome, brother.
So
and look, and I mean, to think about with you specifically, just what that commitment that you made, and that's not only a commitment but an investment for you to make that, not only of your money, your time away from family, but even time in recovery. It's an investment that you made, and just to see the beauty of what it's led to, and the fact that we were able to capture the testimony that you shared with us today, capture little bits and pieces of your story, lessons learned. I mean, man, who would have ever imagined? I mean, who would have ever imagined that this conversation is what that time that we spent together led to? And I hope it continues to snowball and build. I really do. What are you focused on now in terms of just what's the biggest challenge for you now? What are you focused on? Because it obviously never ends.
It never ends.
You have a house full of youngins.
Yes, sir.
That you like to catch when they come when they're born.
Yeah, that's the biggest challenge. There's two biggest challenges, I guess. Starting my own small business, which is the Pontiolo Rodeo Company, which is an apparel line. So being afraid to kind of venture off on my own and start something has been kind of challenging for me, but I'm excited to do it because it's something I've never done. So managing that, and then being there as a dad, like and a husband, because on being on the teams, like I spent years, and I tell people this, literal years away from my family, training, JSED deployments, combat deployments, you name it, schools. Like years of my life were gone away from them. And so you can't get that time back. That's like our greatest resource is time. And so for me, I'm like, this is what I need to be like focusing on, because I can't make up for those lost years, but all I can do is be here now and just mentor them and guide them and be a father, right? You look out for them and have the hard conversations with them and just grow them to be a good person, right? Like successful or whatever it is you want to see in your child. And so it's a lot different of a lifestyle that I've lived before in the past. I do all the cooking, shopping, delivered. I lied to you on the course. I said I delivered 5 of my kids. I actually delivered 6 of my own kids at my house. I forgot one, so sorry, random kid, I forgot. So, but it is the greatest experience I've had of my life is being a father, above everything I've ever done in my life. Like being there where you come home, they run to you and they're like, Dad, and they jump in your arms, like movie stuff you see like on TV. Like those are all real moments, and I wouldn't trade them for anything. So, but it's different. And I say this half jokingly, but there's times I'm like, I'd rather be back in Afghanistan or Iraq or wherever, like war fighting, because that was easier than being at home, like managing like the day-to-day stuff. Because my wife, she's in the reserves, the Army Reserves, but she's active duty right now. So she's mobilized. So I'm at home doing things, like everything. And so I'm like, yeah, this kind of sucks, dude. I was like, I would rather be deployed somewhere, like in the combat zone, because that to me is easier. I was like, managing that and it's like navigating battlefields is easier than managing dentist appointments, medical appointments, grocery shopping, cooking, cleaning, laundry, bills, taxes, like all that stuff, like that it takes to kind of just live. It's like, yeah, I'm not into this.
Yeah, it's
Like,
complex, man. Yeah,
it
and none
is.
of those tasks come with an adrenaline dump, or none of those tasks come with, with really any reward, seemingly, and they're never ending, and it's complex.
Yeah, it's tough, but um, I took my wife for granted. And I never told her that until recently, these last few years. I never said thank you enough, and I think it's something that I think maybe men are more accustomed to. Is we just go do our thing, and they're like, you come home and things are done. Especially being in the military, come home, things are perfect. It's like I never really appreciated or put thought into what it took to keep things together while I was gone. And I never said thanks, maybe not enough. But now, like it wasn't until recently, these last few years, I was like doing these things now. I'm like, this is a lot of work. And I told her, I was like, I never said thank you. I was like, and shame on me for being that way, because I took you for granted, everything it takes to keep a family together. I was like, I just didn't even consider it. So shout out to all the people that are the ones doing that, our spouses, because always, I think it's more often overlooked and under-recognized.
Man, yeah, I mean, there again, so much of what you say resonates with me. It's the same way. Our women are so remarkable, and maybe my audience gets tired of me talking about it, but the same thing with my wife. I mean, I can remember when I was active duty, and I would come home from either a long training trip or a deployment or something like that, and like you said, everything at home would be perfect, and it would be perfect because she wanted it to be perfect. And she was actually going through the midst of a severe drug addiction during the time. But even in the midst of that, she loved me so much that she would make everything perfect when I got home, to include her own self, the way she looked, the way she talked, the way she treated me. It's like the home, the dogs, it's like, holy smokes, you talk about strength, man. Like, that's some different strength, man, to be able to do that time and time again. Thank God for our women, and that he made them the way they made them, the way he made them. They're special.
It's not easy, like the lifestyle we lived in the special ops community. Divorce rates were super high.
Yeah.
Stress is through the roof. Time apart is almost immeasurable. So like for a spouse to stick through that thick and thin, man, it's unheard of. But but again, like I didn't even recognize it, or at least I didn't acknowledge it. I think I recognized it, I just never acknowledged it.
I never acknowledged it either, which I was pretty young and dumb most of my military career in a lot of ways. I almost feel like I didn't start to have really much sense about me until I was kind of in my mid-30s, and I'm still growing into it, But yeah, man, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because spouses of service members definitely don't ever get any sort of spotlight, unless they're the spouse that's serving passes away or dies or is killed in combat. Like they do get help then, but as long as that service member's alive, they don't get any spotlight. And it's great to spotlight because it's service for them too. It's like
sacrifice.
It's sacrifice for them too, in a big, big way, man. So it's great to acknowledge that. Well, look, brother, this, for me personally, was one of my favorite conversations I've ever got to sit down and have.
Thank you.
And, man, I just, I pray that the Lord continues to bless your endeavors, and to give you courage and energy and time to share your lessons with the world. I know we barely scratched the surface today. And, man, I just pray that he continues to send you out to help this world that is confused and lost and in so many ways needs to hear conversations like this. And I do want you to tell our listeners where they can find you, follow you. Also, do you have a website for, how do you say?
Paniolo.
Paniolo. Do you have a website for that yet?
I do, but Instagram. So Instagram, 3/4 Cowboy.
Yep.
And then Paniolo Rodeo Company is my business side, but it's you won't find much there yet. So if you like, Paniolo is a Hawaiian word for cowboy. So if you like Hawaii, the beach, and Western stuff, it's the place for you. So,
well, yeah, I'm gonna follow that page today because you'll be seeing me wearing some of that gear on the podcast later on. I have a feeling it's going to be nice and comfortable and functional. So I'm looking forward to that, man. Daniel, I love you, brother.
thank you, sir.
Thank you for everything that you have done for our country, everything you've done for me, and everyone who's going to listen to this conversation. It's a great honor to be able to share this time with you.
Likewise, and thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. Go follow Daniel. Check him out. Shoot him a message. Let him know what your biggest takeaway from our conversation today was. It means a lot to us. Enough said.